people don't realize how many of these serial killers are among us. They're everywhere. You don't have to be a guy like Bundy or Dahmer who have these high, or John Wayne Gacy, who has these crazy numbers, right? 30, 40, 50, whatever. Some people are serial killers and they kill every so often. They may have 4 or 5, but the key is they kill few, they lay low, same go down, and they keep on doing it again. Some of the guys, and they live in society like normal. They have a normal life, and they're Jekyll and Hyde, and then at night they do House of Horrors. It's scary, and I think people need to know how dangerous serial killers are. They're everywhere. I think people don't understand how prolific they are. They're everywhere.
Heard the other day that the average person comes in or crosses the path of something like, was it like 3 to 6 psychopaths a day that they actually come into contact with and don't even know it.
You know what John Wayne Gacy's last words were? I mean, Bundy, at least when he was fried there in Old Sparky, his last words were, "I tell my family I love them," and whatever, all that. At least that's something, right?
Right.
John Wayne Gacy, "Kiss my ass." That's his last words. "Kiss my ass."
Hey, this is Matt Cox, and I am here with Ignacio Esteban. He is a former ATF agent, retired, and he's written several true crime books based on various cases. I just finished one of them, and we're gonna do an interview. So check it out. Yeah,
what's going on, Matt?
Hey, what's going on?
Nice to be back on your show. The second one.
Yeah. How did the first show do? It did all right, right?
Yeah, I think about over 13,000 views so far in counting.
Yeah, that's good.
Very, very good number. People liked it. Good. Some liked it, and some not so big fans of ATF.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, you always have some guy who's saying this guy's full of shit. Listen, I did one. It's funny because I had a guy that I researched his entire case. I wrote a synopsis, about a 12,000 word synopsis on his case, researched it, saw all the documents, everything. And there were guys in the comment section, "That's bullshit. That never happened. Like he said this," and this isn't the guy saying it. Like, I ordered the police report. This is the police saying this is what happened.
Right.
Like, I didn't just take his word for it. And, I even on my own, every once in a while, you'll get somebody saying, this guy's full of shit. This didn't happen. That didn't happen. And it's like, okay, well, if those things didn't happen, why did I go to federal prison? They didn't send me there for no reason. Like, my charges are,
they're real.
Right. So, but there's always going to be, I would say for every 90 to 100 guys that say wonderful things, there's always one guy or two guys that are just like, they'll hate you for no reason.
Yeah. Some people just like putting bad reviews because they like putting bad reviews. They're nitpicking for anything.
Well, and listen, to be honest, like, those are the ones I typically react to too. So I'm only helping that situation by reacting to them.
Yeah, I've learned to ignore it now. I just ignore them. I ignore them completely, and they do go away because a lot of them are haters because they can't do it themselves. They haven't done anything, and they sit behind a computer. A lot of people can be really badasses behind a computer with a fictitious username and put ridiculous stuff out there, but face to face, they won't do that.
Not even face to face. Sometimes if you just respond to them, like, not even mean, you just say, "Wow, bro, I don't know why you would say that. Like, this is what happened. I'm not sure where you're getting that." They'll come back almost immediately and say, bro, I didn't mean that. I didn't realize. I was drinking last night when I wrote that. And it's like they really just want attention.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. You do see a lot of kids like that, and who knows? Maybe they are underage. And they're just being goofy, and they're going out there and just doing silly things because people create these fictitious accounts. We all know that. Yeah. And then a young kid and they know it. They like to stir things up too. So that's why a lot of times I've learned. I saw some really nasty things, not in this one, but other shows, and I'm like, I'm not gonna even respond to anything like that.
You said something about the red light district back here. Listen, I got a red wall. I painted the red wall. I have, I just took down, I had a bunch of Marilyn Monroe paintings.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I took them down now.
Oh.
So I'm going minimalist. It's just going to be a red wall with the soundproofing, the mics. It's going to change everything. It's going to be huge.
You'll see that. I like it.
Yeah.
I
So
like it. But I do like Marilyn Monroe, though. I'm a big fan, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I make those. I don't know if you've ever seen. I make them. They're modified screen print. So it's a screen print of Marilyn Monroe, but every one of them is different, like different colors.
Oh, different. Cool, yeah. I saw a few of them. Yes, I like that.
So I sell those on Etsy, although sales have dropped recently. The last few months, everything's starting to go south. Even book sales.
Mine have been steady. And the more shows I do, the more the numbers are going higher and higher. And I do a lot. I'm not just true crime, as we talked before. I do politics. I do travel. I did a few books with my daughter, kids books too. So if you like kids books, I've done that with really good message, family, wholesome messages. I just do a variety of things. I really enjoy it. And I just did a crazy one on psycho killers. And of course, you listen to my auto. And now I'm really getting with Sean, and you know Sean well. I mean, because of you. Excellent voice actor. I've been working with him. I have this big one. It's going to come out soon, about 7 hours, almost 7 hours. The most dangerous crime syndicates of our time, which is just from A to Z, soup to nuts. A lot of my shorts put together dealing with the one percenters, Italian mafia, Mexican cartels, Yakuza, street gangs, prison gangs, all in there. So if you really don't have a good handle, this book will put you start getting in the right direction. So I think it's going to be really good. 7 hours. So I look forward to that one coming out. He's been working hard on this one.
Do you ever do anything on the Chinese gangs in like LA, the triads?
In my street gang book, there's a chapter on that.
There's
street gangs.
I'm working on a story right now on the triads.
Oh, okay. Cool. I was going to ask you, since I did a book also on MS-13, and you guys are in Pasco, and it's a true crime channel. What the heck happened Holiday with that poor Uber driver with an MS-13 guy that goes in there and kills him and takes him apart? You see that?
I heard it on the news. I mean, just
about that. The savagery and brutality of MS-13, Mara Salvatrucha. They're not just in LA anymore. They're nationwide, Canada, and they've gone enormous in Central America because that's where their roots came from. They went back and they've pretty much taken over, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala, and southern Mexico. They're spreading.
Is it El Salvador where the president, they elected the president, he built that huge prison and just went and arrested like 10,000 of them or something? Yeah,
they're trying to, but it's like you stomp them more, they keep on spreading, right? Like ants. You hit the ant pile and they just keep on coming around. It's cultural. It's just, and when people are in that culture, it's hard to, you incarcerate them, but they're so hardcore, they don't care. They come out, they'll come back at it again. So what I'm reading, what I saw, I'm a sheriff, I met him briefly from Pasco, and I knew Sheriff White from before out there since I worked so many years out there, and I know you're in that area. Unbelievable in Holiday, that poor Uber driver goes in there, texts his wife, hey, this is my last delivery of the day. I should be home right afterwards, right? That's the last thing he does, man. He walks in the door, and it's lights out. Guy kills him, and horror stories. And I guess he was putting his body in like body bags. So unbelievable. You just don't. It's dangerous. Anywhere I tell people, and I think with psycho killers, I talk about the element, the culture, and what happens. People don't realize how many of these serial killers are among us. They're everywhere. You don't have to be a guy like Bundy or Dahmer who have these high, or John Wayne Gacy who has these crazy numbers, right? 30, 40, 50, whatever. Some people are serial killers and they kill every so often. They may have 4 or 5, but the key is they kill few, they lay low, same go down, and they keep on doing it again. Some of the guys, and they live in society like normal. They have a normal life, and they're Jekyll and Hyde, and then at night they do House of Horrors.
Well, especially if you can get away with it, they get away with it because a lot of times they don't even. They're just opportunists. Like suddenly the opportunity is there, and they just boom, they snap, and like a long distance truck driver or something. Like, how are you going to catch that guy? He killed somebody, gets in his truck. He didn't know him. There's no connection.
Yeah, they get a lot of prostitutes, right? These people, hitchers.
Yeah,
right. People, loners, homeless people in society don't care about.
Right.
People aren't going to miss those kind of people, and they prey on those people. And do horrible, horrible things. I know we're talking about my book, but I'll tell you one story here, and hopefully people read this book. It's gotten really popular, and I think it's called Psycho Killers, right? And I talk about, I mentioned the Dahmers and the Bundys and the Gacys, and I also did a little history on H.H. Holmes, I guess America's first original big serial killer, but some people think was Jack the Ripper also. And we could talk about that on a different show, why similarities did, because he was also in London, 1888, during that time period. He also came back. He had family that was also British. So there's a lot of connections between, and he was a doctor. Because the guy who did with Jack the Ripper was someone who was a physician, because they were very quick in dismantling the organs and taking things out, because that's what Ripper did within 2 minutes. He would take out these females' organs and everything else and dismember them really quickly. And this guy was also very good at that. So those things we can talk about later with Holmes and the comparisons. There's even a family member out there who believes that his great-great-grandfather was Jack the Ripper. And he makes a great argument why he thinks so and stuff like that, which is fascinating. But I'll talk about a quick story here about what makes a serial killer here. You had Richard Ramirez, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the Night Stalker, right? He's my last chapter in my book there, chapter 12. There's the original Night Stalker, which is Joseph D'Angelo, who was a former police officer who becomes a serial rapist and serial killer at the time. And he is the original Night Stalker, but they think they're one and the same. And then later with DNA and evidence, they realize these were two different killers killing in California at the same time, right? So you got lots of serial killers out there.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know there was a second guy called the Night Stalker. I thought there was just the one.
Yeah, no, he's the original Night Stalker, D'Angelo. Joseph D'Angelo, former cop who becomes serial rapist, and then they evolve. First, he starts into burglaries. He goes south, and then he goes into, and he was a burglary detective for years, so that's why he became good at that. Then he changes, goes to the dark side, starts doing it. Then he gets into raping the women, tying them up, right? I think he raped over 60-some women. They're saying the numbers are heinous in California. And then he starts killing them. He would do some real sadistic things when he would tie them up. I'll give one example real quick. He liked to target elderly couple, people that won't be as resistant, right? And let's say he'll tie up the guy. He'll say, listen, I'm going to put these dishes on your back. If I'm hearing any movement from the dishes, right? Because I know you're trying to get out of that. They fall off your back. That means you're trying to get out what I just tied you up here. Because he's raping his wife, right? I'm going to kill your children in the house too. So I'm going to do what I'm going to do here. I see any movement. This is all documented reports of what he said, and he confessed to all this. So he talks about what he did. When I read this stuff, I'm in shock. What's going on here? So that's how sadistic these people are. You imagine that shit? He comes in with a flashlight, and he says, this is what I'm going to do to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's D'Angelo. He's the original Night Stalker. This guy is also what we call the Night Stalker, because they thought with detectives they were one and the same, but they weren't. They're different guys. And this guy D'Angelo, this guy Ramirez, he is pretty much, psychologists say he wasn't born a psychopath. He was made into a psychopath. And I'm going to tell you real quick how he was made to it. And this is a family of serial killers. Now I'm going to explain to you how he was in a family of serial killers, which is unbelievable. I didn't know any of this until I started researching all this myself, and I started looking at it. His cousin was a decorated Green Beret in Vietnam, older than him, but he was killing young Vietnamese women over there. And he was really sick. He would dismember them. He would decapitate them and then use his Polaroid camera and take pictures of all that. This would be documented by Ramirez when he confessed later all the stuff and what they find. So he's a decorated Green Beret. He's in Vietnam, and he's doing House of Horrors on these young women, right? He gets away for years, never gets convicted of it, comes back to the U.S., and he starts indoctrinating his younger cousin how to be really sadistic against women. And he starts developing a taste to hurt women pretty much at an early age. He gets addicted to drugs. He gets an LSD. He starts using cocaine, and he starts growing into, and he teaches him the tricks of being a beret, how to stalk people, how to kill someone quietly, how to do things, and how to, everything he did, he teaches. He even snaps one time and kills his wife. This is the Green Beret, kills his wife in front of him in a rage, shoots her and kills her, right? He witnesses the whole thing. He gets away with it because he claims he had PTSD from the war, right? And he's ruled not guilty of reason of insanity, right? He does some few years in the mental hospital in Texas, and comes back out and goes back with him. And they asked him, how did that impact you, seeing your cousin kill his wife like that? He said, didn't bother me at all. I was just fascinated by it. It just fed into a kind of person he was making me.
Buried by the U.S. government and ignored by the national media, this is the story they don't want you to know. When Frank Amadeo met with President George W. Bush at the White House to discuss NATO operations in Afghanistan, no one knew that he'd already embezzled nearly $200 million from the federal government, money he intended to use to bankroll his plan to take over the world. From Amadeo's global headquarters in the shadow of Florida's Disney World, with a nearly inexhaustible supply of the Internal Revenue Service's funds, Amadeo acquired multiple businesses, amassing a mega conglomerate. Driven by his delusions of world conquest, he negotiated the purchase of a squadron of American fighter jets and the controlling interest in a former Soviet ICBM factory. He began working to build the largest private militia on the planet, over 1 million Africans strong. Simultaneously, Amadeo hired an international black ops force to orchestrate a coup in the Congo, while plotting to take over several small Eastern European countries. The most disturbing part of it all is, had the U.S. government not thwarted his plans, he might have just pulled it off. It's insanity, the bizarre, true story of a bipolar megalomaniac's insane plan for total world domination. Available now on Amazon and Audible.
So I talk a lot about Ramirez, and the stuff he does is absolutely horrific to his victims. So if you're interested in this and you want to know more of the psychology, what we just talked about, Psycho Killers has a lot of that. And stories, I had no idea. I mean, I started dabbling into it, and I had no idea how sick and perverted these people really are.
Yeah, I watched the documentary on Netflix on Ramirez. It's like a 6-part series or something with the 2 detectives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was
The Night Stalker, right?
Yeah,
The Night Stalker, right?
It was actually, obviously they don't. Most of the people are just not either around or don't want to speak about it. Not a lot of B-roll. But the interviews and the B-roll that they did come up with, like they did an amazing job on that series. Like it was really good. The same thing with Bundy. Did you ever see the?
I've seen Bundy, and Dahmer has a good one too.
Yeah, I never saw the Dahmer. The Dahmer one really bothers me. The Bundy one was really good because there was so much stuff that I didn't know. Like I didn't know he had escaped from prison multiple times. I didn't know.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, how many times he had come close to getting caught.
Yeah. House of Horrors in the sorority in Florida State, isn't it? He escapes from prison. They have him for a homicide charge. He walks out the front door dressed as the jailer, right? Dressed as the jailer.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
He walks out the front door, and he's gone for months. He takes trains, planes. He's all over the country until he settles in Tallahassee, and he snaps. He said he was trying to get, because he confesses later. I read his reports. I read everything. That's what I do. I read a lot. And he says that he was trying to get construction work, but they did a background check on him, and he couldn't pass the background because obviously he was been arrested, right? He's not going to be able to pass it.
Yeah, but I mean, he's supposed to be in prison.
Fictitious IDs and all that. He just can't get through it, so he gets triggered. He got triggered. And then when he gets triggered, he goes in the sorority house. I think it's Chi Omega, and he goes in there and commits House of Horrors in there, and it's just horrible. And the details and what he does, it just, if you want to see the detail, I put in my book how sadistic, how sick this guy is. And a lot of these guys get a sexual charge while they're doing this, by the way.
Right. They
really enjoy this, and that's evidence also against them that comes out of there. So it's a lot of stuff these guys leave behind, physically, but also emotionally, baggage and stuff. They're really, really sick. And he was an intelligent guy who went to law school. I don't think he graduated. He had issues there. He struggled with that, but still a smart enough guy to figure out how to work the system. And he was an attractive guy where he was able to trick a lot of the young females. And he liked young females that looked light brown hair, part of the hair in the back. He had a certain type that he liked, very similar to his girlfriend. And that's an interesting read there. I mean, she is living with a serial killer.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Then he ends up getting married to once he's locked up.
All these guys do. All these guys end up getting, you know what John Wayne Gacy's last words were? mean, Bundy, at least when he was fried there in Old Sparky, his last words were, "Hey, tell my family I love them," and whatever, all that. At least that's something, right?
Right.
John Wayne Gacy, kiss my ass. That's his last words. Kiss my ass. For before they put the inject him, and he says, "Kiss my ass," like saying he had no remorse. He killed over 30, and he loved young boys. He loved young teenagers. He was the clown, Pogo the clown, right? He was successful. But
that's creepy.
Creepy because he was very popular in the community. He was very active. He helped people, like you said. He had that dual Jekyll and Hyde. He said, "I'm helpful. I'm a nice guy, but then I'm also a creepy guy that's going to take your son and kill him, and you're never going to see him again." And
I don't get too, like, he's living in the house with the smell, and the bodies are buried in the
everywhere. Bodies everywhere. Yeah.
Like, I get. Well, I mean, obviously, there are certain things that just come along with different mental conditions. Obviously, the idea that he wouldn't dispose of the bodies somewhere else, like how hard it always kills me. It's like these guys murder somebody and then they leave the body in the living room for 2 days, and when it starts smelling, then they bury it outside. It's like you can't. If you're able to kill someone, like you can. I mean, you've got a job. Like, I mean, you're paying your bills. You should be able to think far enough in advance to say, "Hey, I cannot leave this body here, and I'm not going to bury it in my backyard. I need to get rid of it." Like, they just bury it in the backyard. It's easier.
Talking about leaving stuff around. How about Dahmer, man? I know you don't like reading much about Dahmer, but that one incident that he has was, I mean, again, he had a thing for black male prostitutes, right?
Right.
But he also went with Asians too, and he had that young boy from Laos, right? A famous story where he's
the one he drilled the holes in the head.
Yes. He's so messed up that he's drinking. He's an alcoholic, right? And people who don't know Dahmer's a severe alcoholic. And something he goes in these stupors, or he'll get more beer. And he left me. He thought he wanted to make him an ultimate sex slave, right?
Right.
That was his work. He wanted to inject this guy so he can really control, manipulate. He really was crazy out there. But when he came back from the bar and to get more beer, or whatever, he really liked drinking a lot of beer. And when he came back, this is Milwaukee. And when he came back, he saw the kid fully naked talking to his woman at a bus stop, and he was rambling in Laos, and he almost freaked out, right? When I was reading in the reports. So, and they said, "Well, he's my gay lover. He's 19 years old. We had a dispute. He gets like that when he drinks too much. I guess just take him back and it'll be okay." And she said, "No, we already called the police. They're on the way." So Milwaukee's finest, the police department, comes in. They start checking. They call fire rescue. They come out because he's also bleeding in private areas, in his anus and other spots too. That's normal. We have sex and all that. And he explained all that, all this stuff to the police officers. And because he's incoherent, he can't speak in English right now. He's speaking in Laos, and he's like, "Oh, he's drunk." And he said, "Okay, we just had a dispute." I said, "Okay, where do you guys live?" "We're right up here." "Okay, let me take you back." And they escort them back to his apartment. He even tells me in the report, he thanks them, saying, "You guys are doing a great job out here. Crime is out of control. I appreciate everything you've done."
Wow.
He puts him in. He said, "Okay." And the officer's last words, "Hey, take care of him," and says, "I will." And he does.
He killed him before they even got back to the car, right?
Immediately. He injected him again and dismembered him and devoured him.
Yeah. This is never getting monetized, by the way.
Huh?
This video is never getting monetized.
Why?
You know how that works? Okay. So monetization on a video, like they will limit your monetization or make it just completely unadvertiser friendly.
It's a true crime channel. What do they want?
I know what you're saying, but like say 99% of all my videos get monetized because we try and stay away from certain things, and because I typically don't talk about violence.
Oh, that's what true crime is, all violence.
No, but my channel isn't really violence. If you're watching any of my videos, it's scams and cons, and even if it's stuff like buying, even your stuff wasn't violent that we talked about because it was more about buying,
this is violent. This is true crime right here. This is as heinous as it gets. And if you're fascinated by this stuff, look at Psycho Killers, and we can talk about.
Like, don't hold back. Keep pushing the book.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating. I know people love it, and every time I see people talk about it, the views are always enormous. So
yeah, you know what's funny is like 80% of violent true crime is women.
Yeah, women and then gay males.
Really?
You see a lot of gay males, prostitutes suffer because people, these are people who people don't care about, right?
Right. No. Oh, no. I don't mean the victims of it. I mean the people, the consumers, the people that watch it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So my analytics on my channel, it's 95% male.
Right. I would imagine.
But for some reason, like if I talked about murders and serial killers, like if it was that kind of channel, then 80% of it would be female would be watching it. I would
never guess that.
Yeah, women are super attracted to the more violent types of violent murders and serial killings and things like that.
I wonder if that because they're scared and they want to protect themselves, what mistakes these women made and learn from them, maybe?
I don't know. I really thought my channel would be more female. Like there'd be a lot of female, at least a 50-50 mix, or maybe 25-35. But because I don't really, I guess, talk about a lot of violence, then it hasn't picked up with it slowly. Initially, it was like 99%, 98%. Now I think it's down to, it's actually been getting better. But
that is fascinating. I think everybody should be interested because it could impact, because the victims are not just women. There's that misconception that just the victims are women. No. A lot of men also get taken by these serial killers also, and couples. Elderly couples. I remember Ramirez. You saw the documentary.
Yeah,
Ramirez.
Horrible. Yeah.
He picked on elderly couples in their 60s and 70s.
So my for gender, right? Last 28 days, it's been male 92.5%, female 70.4%.
7%.
Yeah. So and then 1% is user non-specific. Sorry, 0.1% is user non-specific. So so the bulk of it is, so it's not 95 now, it's down to 92. But yeah, the bulk of it is male on my channel, which is insane. But yeah, you're right. Maybe it's because women are concerned or in fear or worried about. I think
they should be. Yeah, they're targeted. There's no doubt about it. We'll tone it down with the violence. I won't go. I was going to go more details on stuff, but I'll tone it down. But you're right, because I noticed that a lot of the purchasers were women of my book.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Okay.
How is the audio doing?
I want to work on audio on that. That's me and Sean will be working. But I'm busy, like I said, with the worst crime syndicates of our time. I work on that one. So it's a lot of books out there. I've just finished ATF Undercover. Obviously, you see the poster back there. Work on that one.
That's the one I listened to, right?
Yeah. What'd you think of it?
I thought it was. It's funny. I was working out with my wife this morning, and I was listening because I told you I listened to most of it this morning when I was working out, about 45 minutes of. And you don't really do scenes. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't, when I say scenes, I mean, you don't and this is what kills me is like, and I mentioned it to her, I said, this guy was in the room with these criminals, like, but he's not yours is written. It's very informative. This happened. Sure. I said this, they said this, but you don't reinvent or put the dialogue. So every once in a while you'll have a piece of dialogue where I tend to redo a scene, like they said this, I said this, and I'll do some narration on what the dialogue is because you can't go back and forth. It's too much. Yeah. But I noticed that you don't really do that. You very quickly get to just the core information.
The meat and potato?
Yes. And you're like, boom, 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 boom. Like I wanted to know when you had, a problem with your, I mean, you name what they are, but the supervisors, whatever. Sure. I know you're calling the GPPBT, you give them the initials, like, I don't know what that means. But obviously this supervisor and then his supervisor, like you just basically say, there was a dispute, like we never got along. Like what were some of those events? Like you kind of skim over those. And
Right.
And to me, I would have liked to have known, like, you're saying the guy was a jerk, but why was he a jerk? Like, what did he actually, you give some examples.
I give some examples. Yeah,
you do. But it'd be interesting to see that.
You want more. You want more.
Dialogue.
You want more.
I want more dialogue. I want to see a little bit, not a ton. I don't like a ton, just enough to get so that you kind of know, oh, he's snide. He's making snide comments, or that was kind of a dick thing to say.
And yeah, and the books also, I delve into that, the waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, and the ugly of ATF, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just me buying dope and guns, right? It's I tell you about that story. Also my personal life, right?
Yes.
What I went through my family, my dad's passing from pancreatic cancer, how difficult that was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Charles Dickens, right? Yeah. And I personally experienced that in 2006. Got married, came back from Europe, beautiful vacation from the Canary Islands and in Spain. And then also my father gets sick and he deteriorates. He was a very healthy man, very healthy guy.
Yeah,
didn't drink
66?
much. 66 years old. Didn't smoke much. Didn't smoke any. Didn't drink any. Very fit. Was a big cyclist, an avid cyclist. Loved to work out, but he got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and it was within 7 months. That was it, and he deteriorated immensely quickly. So those are hard things to go through and live through. And while you're still having your caseload in Tampa, back and forth to Miami, have a newlywed, a new wife. There's a lot of things thrown at you. And I was in my early 30s, so those are things you got to carry.
Well, what I was wondering about, and I've noticed this. I noticed it in the BOP. When I was locked up, and I had heard this from officers saying this, and I've noticed this it basically in the federal government. You even say you don't get this kind of behavior other than the federal government.
The private sector, are you?
Huh?
In the private sector, you act.
Oh yeah, you'd be fired. Instead, they just transfer you. So, and then a lot of times in the BOP, what it was explained to me, they said a lot of times what happens is they'll say, we want to transfer you, but they can't they can't force you to do it. So they're like, we can't fire them. We can't transfer them. They said the only way you can force them to take the transfer is to give them a raise.
There we go.
So if you say, look, we're going to make you, we're going to make you a case manager, or, right now you're a counselor. We're desperate to get rid of this fucking guy. We're going to, what we're going to do? We're going to give him a raise. We'll make him a case manager at this other institution, get rid of him.
Yeah.
So then they tell the other institution, this guy's amazing.
Yeah, sure.
He's great.
Yeah.
So what happens is the worse of an employee you are, the more, sometimes, not always, but a lot of times you get these problemed individuals that
they cost your life.
Raises or advancing, and they shouldn't be advanced.
Yeah, I had some doozies. I had some doozies in Tampa and in Florida. I always said, this is my motto. I don't know if I said last time on your show, the bad guys were the easy part. They really were, because I had to overcome so many hurdles as a case agent, as the undercover. I also was the vault custodian. I did my own workups. ATF is a smaller agency than FBI and DEA, so I have to wear many hats and do many things. And when you have a bad supervisor, or even worse, a horrible prosecutor, nothing's worse. The same thing applies in the Department of Justice all over. You get a bad prosecutor who doesn't do justice to your case, it can all unravel, and you spend a year and a half putting it together. That is so frustrating. That's one thing I like about what I'm doing now as a writer, and getting out involved more and more, maybe movie production, maybe TV series production, is you can work as hard as you want, be successful as you want, and produce as much as you want. Well, in the federal government, that's not always the case. And there's people that want to hold you back, and don't want you to succeed. And there's a lot of issues that people just don't understand, the ins and outs of the government and politics that make it hard sometimes to overcome. And there's a lot of personal vendetta and personal grudges. People can be very, very nasty that way and make it very, very difficult. Like that one case, one of my supervisors had, he was very angry at another undercover. He decided to take it out on him, a supervisor, right? And we had an H2, a Hummer. H2 is a very large, people who don't know, it's a very large vehicle, very expensive vehicle to maintain. It was supposed to be only for selective use to undercover work. It's a flash car, right? You're going to do a buy bust. It's a car you use very selectively. This guy decides, I'm taking away from him. I'm going to punish you. And now it's my G ride. and I'm going to use it all the time. He lived in Land O'Lakes, by the way, in Pasco,
Right.
and he had to go down to Tampa. And he's gassing up twice a day once they get there, because you get maybe 9 miles a gallon.
Right.
And he did that for over 4 to 5 years, right? He even had agents come in early because in downtown area, he couldn't fit that monster in the parking garage. So he would have an agent get in there, park early on the side, and when he said, hey, I'm on my way, I'm around, he would have to pull his car out so he can park. You can't make this shit up. Unfortunately, this is all real stuff. And he will park aside. So, of course, he puts his placard there. So the city's not making any money from that. He keeps that out all day. So he was a control freak. And the amount of excessive money Tampa Field Division spent, and the ASAC knew about it, the SAC knew about it, but they did nothing because they didn't want that conflict, that battle. So that's a waste. Fraud. You know how much more? He should have a regular car like everybody else did. And a supervisor should not have that kind of car. And that's one of many examples. And he would later, I was friends with him at the beginning, but later take it out on me because of issues we had. Because my partner, I think I mentioned on last show, the Puerto Rican bullet catcher, right? He was involved in that famous shooting in Miami, which Ripley, believe it or not, did a big episode on after he retired, where he takes the round from a bad guy who shoots into his gun, right? He had a SIG 9mm. He has a SIG 9mm. And when he's trying to arrest a guy in Hialeah, he fires around him and he catches in his barrel. He catches it in, it plugs his barrel. He can't shoot the guy. But goodness, the Hialeah SWAT team is on the other side of the vehicle and opens up on him and takes care of that guy. He's very lucky. But the glass shatters on him and everything else. He's lucky to be alive. But he goes to war with that guy. But he was my mentor. And I worked with the guy. And he wants me to turn me against him now. This is the kind of guy he is. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not going to say, I want you to shun him, don't talk to him, don't deal with him and everything else. Oh, you don't do what I was saying? He went to war with me. And I was a highly successful agent, making some of the biggest cases at Undercover Apartments and everything else. He doesn't give a crap. He doesn't give a shit.
The
next thing I know,
childish.
Fucking unbelievable. And next thing I know, I end up have to get transferred to Miami because the SAC says to me, she was a female and she's had it with the whole situation. He says, it seems like the well has been poisoned. And I have a weekend to figure out where I want to go. If not, I'm going to find you a home. And that's after 12 years being successful in Tampa. So I spoke to my wife, and at the time, my grandmother was very ill. I said, well, I guess I'll go to Miami. He says, oh, how wonderful. How wonderful. You've been making a lot of new friends. It's all true, though. It's unfortunate, folks. That's the reality of the federal government. And at least the private sector, people fire each other. Because I worked also in the private sector. You're not competent. You're a buffoon. You're losing money for the company, right? Are they going to keep dead weight? No, they're going to get rid of you. You work in the private sector. You know that, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, no, they'll
cut you.
Yeah, listen, not just that, not just pulling your weight. If you're not making money, if you're a drain, if you're even if there's a conflict, we're going to get rid of the guy who's causing the conflict. You know.
How about an alcoholic? You can't even get rid of alcoholics. We had guys in the government you can't get rid because it's considered a disease, right?
Well, there's guys in the BOP that are hooked on pain pill. I mean, the cops are coming. The correctional officers are coming in. They're high on pain pills. Yep. They're maniacs.
I've written some about the corruption in some of these prison systems also in my books, Prison Gang Killers, and some of the corruption is enormous all the way to the top,
What was the thing there was a state prison where the guards could control the movements of the inmates by opening gates, and they would end up letting two rival gang inmates into an area, and they were taking bets on who would win.
Yeah, I've seen that too. Or how about a lot of the female inmates getting pregnant by the guards there and everything else, right?
Yeah,
that happens a lot. I think the chief in one out there in Maryland, I want to say it was in Baltimore, had like 4 or 5 females pregnant.
Yeah.
Well,
you know what's interesting is, so my wife was locked up in Coleman. You know, Coleman had a massive lawsuit against a bunch of women getting, raped.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was big, and she was there with all these girls. And she'll tell you
by whom?
The COs.
Really?
Right. But here's the thing: like when she'll sit there and she'll say, her version is, which I believe, is that the girls were literally targeting the COs. Like they're flirting with them. They're trying to sleep with them. And then they get the COs bring stuff in for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they bring in food, they bring in, they'll bring in cell phones, they'll bring in all kinds of stuff, and then they're sleeping with the inmates. So, but technically, the COs, if they have sex with an inmate, it's rape. The inmate, a female or male inmate, cannot give consent. Therefore, it's forcible, or therefore it's rape.
That's right.
So, listen, literally, her cellie was having sex with one of the guards. And she said, look, not that the guards weren't trying you, but she's like, they make it seem like they're being cornered and the doors are locked and 3 guards come in. She's, that's not what it is at all. It's like the guards are flirting with them. They're like, they would get them into a room, or not trap them in a room, but like, hey, come in the office. They close the door, and they'd make out and they'd have sex, and and then the guard would bring stuff for them, bring them in this, bring them in that. Hey, can I bring in some food?
Unacceptable, unprofessional behavior.
Absolutely, but but what I'm saying, I mean, from the guard's perspective, obviously, but then the guards get charged with rape. Like, oh my God! Like you're charging like I get it. I understand it's inappropriate, but they when you hear rape.
Oh, rape! You think of Bundy and these other psychopaths, right?
Of course. So to me, it's like, come up with a lesser charge. Well, to be honest with you, most of these guys just got dismissed.
Yeah, fired. Yeah, they should be.
They were dismissed. There was a huge lawsuit. The inmates got paid, but it was in there. They specifically, one woman got together and got several of the girls that had sex with the guards, and then several other girls that my wife says, she's like, I don't think that they slept with any of the COs. Like, I think they just jumped on the bandwagon, but it was such a publicity issue for the BOP. They just immediately came in and settled, because let's face it, the girls that can prove they had sex with them, there's text messages, they're bringing stuff in, they have samples of, blood samples, DNA. I can prove this, I can prove that. And it's like, okay, well, there's no way you could have gotten that DNA unless And then some of the COs immediately, once they're cornered, they admit it. Yes, this is what happened. Yes, I also know this person did this. So they're giving each other up.
Because if you lie and they prove it, then you got more charges pending.
Now you're lying to a federal officer.
Yeah, now you got more stuff coming out your way.
So anyway, what happened is they ultimately let these guys go, and they paid out a huge fine.
I think that's a huge problem throughout the country and the world.
Yeah,
and not just men on women. I think you see also men on men too.
Well, you get these. Well, listen, I knew a guy in there. Oh my God, this is horrible. There was a CO that had been moved around. Literally, I don't know how long he'd been with the BOP, but he'd been moved around multiple times. And my buddy in there, his name, his first name was Frank. Frank was an older guy. The CO was an older guy, probably late 50s, early 60s. My buddy's an older guy, early 60s. He's walking by one day, and the CO, who'd only been there, a week or two, says to him, tells him to come into the office. Walks in the office, he goes, close the door. And he's like, you don't walk in and close the door. Like, what are you doing? He's like, okay. So he closes the door. It's a low, So he's sitting there, and the guy says, he goes, how long you been here? He tells him, I've been locked up about whatever it was, 6 years, 7 years. Oh, yeah. He said, you look like you work out. You work out? He goes, yeah, I used to work out a lot. Not so much anymore. I walk the track. He said, so he sparks up like a conversation. And he says, out of nowhere, the CO says to him, if you have sex with another man and you're locked up, it doesn't make you gay. And my buddy goes, yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does.
He goes, yeah, it does. And he said, no, it doesn't. And he goes, listen, man, he said, I'm feeling uncomfortable about this conversation. He said, I'm going to go. And he leaves. Well, he immediately comes and he tells me and a guy named Donovan that I was friends with. He comes outside. He's like, listen to what just happened.
Yeah. No,
and he tells us, we're dying laughing. And of course, listen, most of our time was in there. It was spent just giving each other a hard time. And I go, listen, Frank, you got a lot of time.
Yeah. It doesn't make you gay.
And I said, you might want to think. Now, my buddy Rossini is there, right? He does legal work. And I said, you might want to think about. I said, listen, this may be an opportunity for a downward to get like a Rule 35
departure for you.
Yeah, it might be an opportunity for you. You've got a lot of time. You got nothing coming. And he goes, and he's like, fuck you. And then I said, and Donovan jumps in and he goes, think about it, Frank. He goes, at least give him a reach around. And so Rossini says, just from nowhere, Rossini goes, save the sample. Like this whole weird dying laugh. And of course, Frank gets upset and yells at us, calls us a bunch of jerks and walks off. But yeah, I definitely can see them trying people.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I think what I'm reading, what my experience is, what the state system's even worse. The state prisons are a complete zoo.
It's even lower.
Yes, it is. Everything. And that's where you saw the corruption. I want to say it was in Baltimore, and because this is my book, and it's been a while, but it was like it was run like a criminal enterprise. That the way they had everything structured with the females, with the drugs coming in, with everything, it's just unacceptable. And this is what you get when you can't get rid of people. We'll go back to our point. You have to have accountability, and the government, that action what he did. When I'm talking about a supervisor, there should be accountability. When you have people that are incompetent, unfit, making bad decisions, or trying to hurt you, you have to have accountability because I'm risking my life, right? I'm meeting with these bad guys, making arrests, and then you come back and you have to deal with an asshole supervisor or a shitty prosecutor. And I say some of them are either bad or they got their own agendas. You know, you got activist judges, but you got activist prosecutors. Right. And the same thing applies everywhere. So a lot of people have no idea how difficult to be a successful. But I'm a motivated person. I'm the type of guy that sees a glass half full, no matter what, right? But there are people get broken easy, and they're just disgruntled. They're the kind of people that just are broken, disgruntled, and just, I just want to get along, just get it done. I said, no, I'm here to do the job. I came here because I had a passion. I want to do these cases. I want to put the worst and the worst in prison. So I have to get motivated, and of course, get my own personal life. So I'm dealing with personal stuff, right? I'm having the cases, and you have that person that has to. When I'm at work, I got to focus here when I'm here, because if not, things just don't get done. And that's one thing I give people a message. You're going to have issues in life. You're going to have problems. You got to adapt and overcome and do things. That's one of the messages in the book. And I also talk about, I think, solutions to some of the violent crime we have, right? I know you didn't get to the backside there, but I deal with, solutions, how to deal with mass shootings, solutions, how to deal with repeat violent offenders, right? Firearms trafficking. And some of the things, some of our gun laws. I mean, I did a lot of firearms trafficking cases. I talked about that, right? How much time a lot of these guys get for firearms trafficking?
Yeah, they 3 years. One guy got 36 months.
The badasses, repeat violent offenders get a lot of time, right? But if you have no history and you're running a lot of guns, you don't get much time, which is a problem. We need guys to get at least 10 years for massive trafficking. I had that case, I don't know if you remember, about the dirty FFL, the federal firearms licensee, how I worked up, right? And he ends up getting 2 years after putting tons of guns on the streets. He violates the public trust. He's not even
the guy that was in Venezuela. Was there one of the guys was in somewhere in Latin America or Venezuela?
Puerto Rico?
Yeah, was it Puerto Rico?
Yeah. Dirty FedEx employee?
No, this was a guy. He ended up getting like 30. I remember he got 36 months, I think you said. Was it Escobar? His last name was Escobar?
Oh, out of Ecuador.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said, tried to say, I was just selling them to friends.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're smuggling. You're a smuggler. You lied about it.
But it was hundreds of guns.
You can't have those guns there. And you can't say they're a bunch of aficionados who are having fun on the weekends hunting, because they weren't. There were a lot of handguns in there. And they were recovered in a house. This case started full of gang members in Guayaquil, in Ecuador. So that's how we got the lead. We traced it back. And he was trafficking guns since his days in college in the 90s. At LSU.
And he got what? He got like 3 years. 3
years. And that's significant. A lot of times you don't see that kind. You see guys because they had no criminal history. So those are the issues I talk about, where firearms trafficking has to be taken more seriously. And that's something where, because these guns go in bad people, not just international trafficking, which that was a major international case. You have domestic trafficking and you have local trafficking. And local trafficking is one of these guys getting the guns. These are bad gang members. This is how they get their guns, in the black market. And it's very easy. We have people who are doing and I did a lot of cases where I'm dealing with felons who set up shop in these flea markets or these gun shows, right? Private sales, right? There's no cash and carry, or you go online on the internet and you meet people, felons meeting felons at the parking lot of wherever, and they're buying guns. We've got some big problems to deal with that, because you can pass all the gun laws you want and put all the gun control in place, which doesn't work in my opinion, but there's so many loopholes, people find a way around it. Bad guys always do bad things.
Right.
And we're the ones that get victimized, the good people.
I was going to say, listen to this, and tell me if this made sense. I mean, when he said it, I never questioned it. It seemed like, wow, that seems like a reach. Well, it's not a reach. It's I knew a guy that was a felon, went to, did I tell you this last time? He went to one of those gun shows with his girlfriend. His girlfriend buys the gun, comes back. But they were in his vehicle. The ATF, he said, had gone through and gotten the tag numbers of people at the gun show and run them. They saw that I was a convicted felon. So he said, like 2 weeks later or something like that, they pulled him over and he had the gun that his girlfriend had got. And he ended up getting a constructive possession charge. And I think he got like 3 years or 5 years or something like that.
But he had a history.
No, he was, well, when he's a felon, and two, he'd been arrested already before for drugs.
Sure. So you have a history and more time. People who are like, let's say, straw purchasers. Let me give this example. People who don't know what a straw is, that's somebody who has no criminal history that goes into an FFL, a federal firearms licensee, buys some guns, says this gun is for me, right? He's an actual purchaser, right? And they end up giving the guns to a felon or something, right? Those people with no history, a lot of times just get a slap on the wrist and get probation.
Well, if you if I bought a couple of guns, not me, but if somebody with no history bought a couple of guns
for you,
2 years, for me, and had them for 3 or 4 years, and then went and sold them, he's not breaking the law. The problem is when they go in and they buy the gun knowing they're going to sell it to this guy. Like, I'm buying it for $500 and I'm going to sell it for $1,500 to this guy over here.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Right. But if you're just selling your own gun.
No. Yeah. If you're, like I said, collectors collect, right? Traffickers sell.
Right.
Now, I'm a collector. I keep my guns because I need my firearms. I want my weapons, right? And if you want to sell firearms, get your license. Do it the right way. You have to get background checks and a lot of stuff. Like, listen, I've been retired from ATF close to 2 years now, right? I've done the gamut with ATF investigations, from undercover case agent. I've done all kinds of cases, and I went to headquarters. I promoted and spent 2 years in headquarters, and I saw behind the scenes how things worked, right? At the top of it, I became very good friends with the #1 command in the central region, and because we worked together on the most sensitive projects, sensitive cases. That's because of what happened in Fast and Furious. Operation Fast and Furious, it had monitored more of these cases, so this wouldn't happen again. So guns wouldn't walk, the technique walking to Mexico and the cartels. Stuff, things like that. So something's risky, sensitive. Hey, we got to put an end to this and see what's going on here, because we don't want a public safety issue and stuff like that. So I saw a lot firsthand what's behind the scene, but I'm not happy with the Biden administration. This has changed. And in my opinion, this is my opinion, I'm going to say this, has kind of weaponized ATF with the bump stocks and with the pistol brace, right?
Right.
They were legal for years. I know guys who bought them. Right? They said there were no issues to attach it. Obviously, you're not, and people don't know what a pistol brace is. You put it in a handgun, and you're not supposed to shoot it from the shoulder. It's supposed to help you shoot better. It's supposed to help you brace better. You're not supposed to put it on your shoulder, because then it becomes SPR. But people violate it, and I guess the Biden administration thought, like the bump stock, it's supposed to make you shoot faster, but it's almost automatic, makes you pull faster, right? But Steve Paddock used it in the worst mass shooting in U.S. history in Las Vegas, right? The sniper there. And on the strip during the concert, and he set up like with 2 suites, a rich guy who went crazy, but he used it. And all of a sudden he said, oh, we got to ban. No, it's what's between the ears, right? It's just an object. Why are you punishing everybody else so it becomes illegal? Now this is illegal, right? Now with a pistol brace, if you still have it, now you are in violation. Are you going to start arresting people because now they have an NFA because it's supposed to be a short barrel rifle? Or a short barrel shotgun, if you put on your shotgun now, even though it was legal for years to do that. So now you spent $300, you're supposed to dispose of it. You're supposed to either take it apart,
throw away the $300.
Throw away your $300. Now because, or try to get it registered. Good luck to you, because a lot of these chiefs are not approving it, because you got to get approved by the local authority in your area. Well, good luck with that. So, and on top of that, now sometimes it's a waiver, sometimes say they don't. they may pay another $200 to get registered. SOT, special occupational tax. Come on, man. I'm a retired ATF agent. I don't think that's right. And I think that was Biden's administration using ATF to do that. And that's my opinion. Obviously, the director now, Steve Dilbach, doesn't believe that, but he's an attorney. He was never an agent, right? He was appointed. I mean, that's a politics. I'll give you a little ATF politics there. I don't think it's right what happened there.
Well, I definitely don't think it's right that you're telling me that I paid for something that when I bought it, it was legal. It was $300.
Yes.
Now you're saying I'm going to get in trouble. Yeah, just throw it away. Well, I'm throwing away $300. No, now if you have a buyback program, you're going to give me my $300 back.
They don't.
Yeah, that's just fucking.
Either you trash it, you make it inoperable, or you have to go to the ATF office and turn it over. And so this is my point. Are we now going to make these people felons? Is that right now because they have an unregistered short barrel shotgun or rifle, an SBR and SPS? I don't think so. This is my opinion. This is me as a retired agent. I can say this now. Now, if I was still an agent, I probably wouldn't be able to say this. I have to be honest with you, because I'll be considered like a whistleblower, right? Even though I've said things before. And what happens to whistleblowers? They don't do so well. They end up being messed with. Just like happened when I brought up the problems with the other idiot, remember, with the H2 and all the other stuff he was doing. I get transferred to Miami. I was very happy in Tampa. I was working big cases. Miami's a tougher city. I did fine there, but that's not where I wanted to be.
I was going to say, did you ever see there was a TikTok video where an agent, I think it was an ATF agent comes. Yeah, it was an ATF agent comes to this guy's door. He's got some registered weapon. What?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. Where the guy goes, oh, hold on a second, and calls the police and says, the guy here, he says he wants to see my guns.
From Columbus. You talking the one the guy gets arrested?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That was it to me. First of all,
he had tased too.
Yeah, but here's the thing. What killed me is this. All he had to do was comply.
Yeah, show identification.
Show the identification, comply. Let him put some handcuffs
that's
on.
Happened to me.
Deal, huh?
Matt, that's happened to me.
Oh, let me hear what happened.
In Brooksville, and the same thing. But the FFL didn't like the interview, so I'm always plain clothes. We don't have a uniform. I'm always plain clothes.
No, in other words, the FL what?
FFL didn't like the interview.
What does that mean? FFL?
Federal Firearms Licensee.
Oh, okay.
The gun shop owner.
All right.
Yeah. So, and we do a lot with them. And a lot of times we're playing, and some of them really are nasty. Just like the one guy we talked about got 2 years, how dirty it was. Some of them are. There's a lot of good ones, and there's some bad ones in there. And I show my identification. He's a liar. He says that some guy claimed to be an ATF agent, calls the sheriff's office, just interview me. He's outside the parking lot. So they come up and they say, hey, I need to see your identification, the whole thing. I heard you came in here. I said, no, I did show it. It's in my back pocket. It was, let me keep your hands up. I said, okay, my hands are right here. And it says, where is your identification? So one of the officers reached behind and pulls it out of my back pocket. Now, I don't want to be an ass and be stupid, so I'm going to comply. So they looked at it, they verified it, and I explained the whole situation. I saw his situation. He said, okay, keep your hands up. Let me see your identification. We'll see. So, yeah, you feel like you're being disrespected. The ladies try and play a system. But at the same time, you're going to be outgunned here. You're going to be outplayed here because they're more than – and you're going to get tased and put down. And like he got handcuffed, thrown in the back of the mark unit. I mean, my head, he bumped his head on the whole 9 yards.
Look, here's what bothers me. Is that, like, to me, the cops showing up saying, hey, get out of the car. Let me see your, I don't feel like that's being disrespected. I mean, to me, it's like to me, I don't know why they're here. They don't really know what's going on. They're asking to see my ID. I did.
That's what I did.
Absolutely.
That's what I did. I complied.
Yeah, exactly. The problem was that guy, he immediately, you could just tell he's a dickhead, Hey, I'm a federal agent. Hey, look, I'm sure you're a real badass, bro. But for right now, put your fucking hands up.
Yeah.
Let me see your, what I'm saying? Like you do what I tell you to do right now. You don't know what the situation is.
That's
so
true.
Mouthing off, what happens? He ends up
escalating
his head. Suddenly he starts talking about a heart condition and everything. It's like,
I can't breathe.
Bro.
Remember, I can't breathe.
Yeah. Stop it, bro. Nobody cares about some guy who works at Walmart who's getting arrested if he's got a heart condition or he can't breathe or You know, no, we're cuffing you, putting in the back of the car. You had a chance. I always love the people that the TikToks where the guys don't want to show their driver's license or something. Oh, I don't need a driver's license to drive.
Yes, you do.
That's not going to go good. Like, I don't know which one of your idiot friends told you that was a thing, but it's not.
No. Anytime they start disrespecting law enforcement and escalate, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen all the videos on the airplanes when people start getting confrontational with the stewardess and they get out of control and then they start yelling at the pilot? That's not going to go good for you.
No, this is not going to end well.
No. I mean, there's so many Karens and Kevins out there. Have you ever seen all those Karen videos?
Yeah, I love those. I love the cops show up and they're just like, "What are you doing?" Yeah, he can do that. Or, oh, he's videoing in the street. He's allowed to video in the street.
Yeah. Or they go on these crazy rants for whatever reason, and they think they're entitled and they can do and yell and do all these things. If you haven't seen those videos, folks, take a look at them. Type in "watching a Karen out of control."
Yeah, they're nuts.
They're absolutely nuts. And you can see a lot of them on the airplanes too. That's because they will turn the plane around, which I've seen the videos. They're going to land, and guess who's waiting for you? The locals are.
Yeah. And
it's going to get ugly. And you see the videos, it gets ugly.
Listen, I saw one the other day where the woman was escorted off the plane. But the pilot basically came out and said, "Look, you got to go." But people are videoing, and she gets upset. They didn't call the police. She just walks off the plane yelling and cussing and screaming. And as she walks off, she screams, "I hope you guys crash, burn, and die." And right then the pilot went, "Oh, hell no." And he went after her. I have no doubt that she got arrested, or the police came and questioned her. That, like, don't get cute. Don't start talking about bombs and terrorists and blowing up and dying.
Angry. They get out of control. I don't know how people don't know how to be measured. But a lot of it, I go back to mental health issues, because a lot of these people are off their meds, and you see it over and over again. They get on these planes and they don't handle orders. They don't handle your rules. You're going to plane. There's lots of rules. And you think you can't tell me what to do, and you touched me, and I'm going to let you have it.
Yeah, what? You can't touch me. You can't touch me. I'm a law enforcement officer. I'm putting handcuffs on you. I'm going to touch you.
You're done. You're done. And the stewardess can even take control of you if you're a danger to the plane. They wrap people. Have you seen the picture? They get wrapped up and everything. They wrap them up. I mean, okay.
Hey, I have a question for you. Have you ever met any sovereign citizens?
I've heard of them. I don't think I met one personally, unless maybe they didn't tell me.
Oh, listen, the jails are full of them. Like, prison's full of them. Like, there's not full of them, but there's probably, I've met 30 of them. I actually have done an interview with this one guy who's a sovereign citizen. And I mean,
wow,
they are so convincing. Like, obviously I know he's insane, but they are so 100%. I love people that talk so convincing and
they're crazy,
and confident about what they believe, but it's insanity. Like they're telling you like that the earth is flat or something, and they have all these reasons why it's flat, and you're sitting there looking at them like, right. And the whole time I'm looking at him thinking, right. He's thinking he's convincing me, and I'm thinking, what went wrong chemically in your mind that has you believing that you don't have to pay income tax, that law enforcement has no authority over you, that like there's all these things in it, and money doesn't exist. He'll go on and on like, right. And what's so funny about those guys is that I've never once ever in over a decade dealing with these guys have ever seen a successful sovereign citizen. There's always some guy staying in somebody's spare room who can barely pay their bills, who are, they think they've got it all figured out, and yet you are the most you're this close to being on the street.
Yeah.
And you never meet some guy living in a $2 million house that's a sovereign citizen like that. And if he does, it's because he's committing tax fraud and he's about to go to prison, be indicted and go to prison.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what's been out of control after Waco with Timothy McVeigh, right? Maybe he was the ultimate sovereign citizen. And I wrote a book about McVeigh and the face of U.S. domestic terror. And in a sense, they're one step away being McVeigh, some of these sovereign citizens, right? Because they're anarchists.
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah.
Because
They're not anarchists as much as they just think that the United States laws don't apply to them, which doesn't mean that they want anarchy as much as it's them saying, no, I'm my own person. I'm in charge of myself. Your laws don't apply to me, which is insanity.
Yeah, that's insanity. That's like, and I wrote a book about McVeigh and what spin out of Waco. I mean, you think about, we talked a little bit about Jim Jones last time, right?
Right.
We talked about the cults, and the Branch Davidians are a smaller version of the People's Temple, right? Instead of 900 something dying, it was 70 something dying in there, right. And the firing ending there. But and the events there, I will talk about a little bit of McVeigh. People who don't know who Timothy McVeigh is. McVeigh was a decorated U.S. war veteran in the Persian Gulf War. If he would have been killed in the Persian Gulf War to liberate Kuwait from Saddam Hussein, he would have been a hero, a patriot, right? But 5 years later, from 1990, he becomes the worst domestic terrorist in U.S. history. And it's fascinating to see his transformation. I mean, he had issues. While I was reading, I do a lot of research, and I read all the stories and everything else. He was kind of, when growing up, become a loner. He was kind of an introvert, right? His grandfather taught him a lot about firearms, so he became a big firearms enthusiast. He became really into firearms. Great. That's why he joined the Army. He became decorated and all that. But he also got involved with some anti-government white nationalists. And his co-conspirators that he uses there, Terry Nichols and Michael Fortier, were also from the Army. All these guys who commit this act were Army veterans who come in and get together and commit this act against other Americans in the name of a tyrannical regime.
Didn't they catch him? Didn't he also have a copy of the Turner Diaries?
He was also pumping that crap. He gets brainwashed with that garbage. Because he starts, before he does all this stuff, before Waco, he does a tour on the gun show. I met a lot of people in the gun show circuit. They're good people. There's some bad ones. And he said the farther west he went, because reading when he said the crazier or the more extremist they were, the more anti-government they were. And those who don't know what the Turner Diaries are, it's about this anti-government group, white nationalist group, that use a truck bomb to hit FBI headquarters and take it out. Well, he copies it. Instead of FBI headquarters, he doesn't like ATF. He goes after ATF and other federal agencies in Oklahoma, but he parks it, and I'll get there. He parks it in front of daycare, right? Mm-hmm. And he later calls it collateral damage in his revolution. He killed maybe those little the babies and all that.
Was it 20 or 30 of them, something like that?
Yeah,
30 children?
Horrible stuff, man.
The federal agency, the office was empty that day.
ATF, yeah. ATF agents come in later because we work later all hours, right? Because we're not 9 to 5 guys. We're guys that work late. So, but he killed a lot of agents. So I think I remember it's in my book, the numbers I put in there. I think IRS and DEA and other ones. But he was anti-government. He originally won instead of he thought, and what he said later was that he got his most bang for his buck with a truck bomb, because he also wanted to assassinate agents. He also wanted to assassinate judges. He also wanted to kill politicians. So he really went. He snapped. He went.
Okay, so then why is he driving around with in a vehicle with no tag on it?
Yeah, like these guys plan things, but at the end he had fall. It was an Oklahoma State trooper that pulled him over with no tag at the end.
Like what an idiot! Like all of the things that he did and put together. Like, I mean, remove the morality of the entire situation. The fact is the planning was well planned, and then you have no escape strategy. Like you have it just completely listen to me, it's like robbing a bank. Like you could plan all the things, but if you can't figure out how to get out of that bank and get away scot-free, all that planning doesn't mean anybody. You could have gone in with a note.
Yeah.
So the idea that he planned that whole thing and then gets caught on such a stupid little technicality or little glitch.
He gets pulled over by the trooper. He gets arrested, not for that. He gets arrested because he had a concealed weapon. He had a .45 Glock in his waistband. He had it in case the second fuse wouldn't go. He was going to activate himself. He was going to shoot it, and he said he was going to die in the truck with it, but he was going to have the explosion no matter what. He was going to initiate the charge either himself or the second fuse. He parked that car there 2 days earlier, but he had a car there, like you said. These guys were poor. Right? Yeah. They stole a lot to make this happen. I mean, it's unbelievable the stuff he had to pull off to get this done. It took him like a year and a half to get it going.
Did you see the interview on him?
Mm-hmm.
where he talks about where they said, what was the first thing you thought of when you looked over? And he said, I was disappointed because I really thought I was going to bring the whole building down.
Yeah, he's sick.
It was his first thought was
didn't have enough.
Get it.
Didn't have enough AMFO, ammonium nitrate fertilizer, and he had over 5,000 pounds.
Listen, that building almost came completely down. The chunk out of that thing was that explosion must have been.
Yeah, it was 30 foot wide crater, 8 foot deep. That's impressive. That's impressive. And he took him down, and of course he will become the first federal prisoner executed in 38 years. President Bush signed off it in June 11th, 2001, and became before 9/11. And obviously,
he was okay with it though too. He didn't fight it.
At the end, he didn't care. He didn't want to live like that anymore. Terry Nichols, I thought, the co-conspirator, helped him get out the explosives, who knew about this. He should have been executed also. He went to a state trial in Oklahoma, convicted of 168 counts of murder, but the jury was deadlocked on the death penalty.
How did he get caught?
I guess with all the evidence they had and putting the case together.
The van. Didn't he rent the van?
He was part. I know he was part with the rental. He was part of the conspiracy with the explosives, and he had other stuff also at different storages and locations. And so they put the case together with him. So he went down. Michael Fortier also helped. His wife also helped McVeigh put fake IDs, but she was given immunity. And he is now in witness protection program. He was out already, Michael Fortier. So he's out and about witness protection. So we have him, but he testified against both these guys. So those are interesting things about extremism, how it happens, what triggered him. I mean, what triggered McVeigh at the end? He was at Waco, and he was there during the siege, the 51-day siege. People who know what Waco is.
They interviewed him.
Yeah, they interviewed him.
Yeah.
He was selling bumper stickers.
You
can't make this stuff up. That's why I love nonfiction.
I know.
Than anything else.
It's funny because I'll when I talk to these guys and research stuff, I mean, I am constantly telling myself that I mean, I know it's a cliche, that truth is stranger than fiction, but I mean, there's stuff that I'm just like, I never could have come up with this.
No,
like if I had to just imagine it, like some of the things that people say and things that happened, it's like, this is insane.
Isn't it bone chilling to watch him be interviewed there at Waco, where you know what he's going to do 2 years later on the anniversary?
Yeah.
In Oklahoma. We just had the anniversary, the 30-year anniversary of Waco and the 20-year anniversary of Oklahoma. That's the reason what inspired me to write all this stuff and get involved. And but man, we had 4 agents that were killed at like I said, like with Jim Jones, with Koresh, they cooperated. We talked about the agent. Why didn't he cooperate? Well, if you cooperate with the investigation, you get your time in court. Your time in court is not to open up on the agents when they come in a search warrant and say, and people don't know this. They were tipped off about agents coming in because a local reporter got information and he went to a letter carrier and said, hey, where is this Mount Carmel with the rims on? Like, he got lost. I heard ATF is going to hit a search warrant. I'm covering it. Have they hit it already? Well, that was his brother-in-law. And he tells him what's going on. Hey, I just as a reporter, ATF's coming. So rather than being sleeping and not prepared for it, they're all prepared and armed. And it's an all-out war. And 4 agents are murdered because of it. So those events later trigger. And then if Koresh really wanted to let those kids out, he should let the kids out, because the listening device the FBI had over there, and when they're coming after 51 days, they had enough of this. They want to get the kids out. They hear them saying, hey, they're coming. Let's set the fire on. It wasn't the FBI, the feds that set the fire. He did. He started the fire. And that's out there also. So those events that said the government did this, why not cooperate? You're the ones that triggered all these problems. You know what I'm saying? We have a legal search warrant. You're illegally having firearms here. He also was having sex with minors. He was doing other things, right? He had some weird rules there where, if you came as a couple, he was the only one that could have sex with your wife. He did unbelievable stuff, right?
All these cult leaders, once they get a little bit of power, they all get weird and almost immediately they get power, power. Well, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And then even if these guys initially, maybe they had aspirations of coming up with some kind of a church or something, maybe they had, good aspirations, very quickly it tends to go right. So the moment they get absolute power, they immediately get nuts.
Yeah. I think we talked a little about Jim Jones before, People's Temple, but if Jim Jones in the 50s, let's say 60s, before he got really out of control, because he was a civil rights leader in some sense, integrating the churches, integrating a lot of different things. He was the first, him and his wife were the first couple to adopt a black child in Indiana. I mean, they did a lot of things. He would die in a car accident. He probably been a civil rights hero, right? Instead, he becomes a monster in 1978 for what happens in Jonestown. So people snap, people change. David Koresh was a good guy, I think, at the beginning, and then he changed. And I think he became this monster, like you see these guys. He should have let those children go. There's no need to set those fires. There's no need to have done all that. But at the end, this is what goes on because his ego is, and a lot of these guys, they believe the followers are their property, right? And we're all going down with it. This is my world. It's all mine. So mother, please. Remember that?
Yeah.
Mother, please.
Listening to that tape of Jim Jones when everybody's being poisoned.
Sickening.
It is bone chilling. Like this is insanity. You can hear the people crying, and
I don't know if I told you what I felt. It's in my book about how I felt about Leo Ryan, the congressman, going out there. How do you go out there not being armed, not having a security force, not having the government with you? Did you think guy's ultra paranoid? You know he has weapons because they're telling you what's going on, right? And how do you think they're not protected?
So I thought about that, and I noticed this a lot of times, is that if you've been raised in a non-violent environment and you've been surrounded by it, you somehow, and especially if you suddenly get to like a position of power yourself, you start thinking that you're somehow or another shielded from violence. Like you don't think anything bad's going to happen to you because you've never been a part of it. You've heard about it, but you've never seen it. And all when he went out there, he's really just being told that we're not being allowed to leave. So he may not be thinking that maybe he's not thinking that he's in danger. He's going to go out. He's going to see what happens. He's going to have a conversation. He's going to leave. He's probably not thinking that Jones is insane as he clearly was. You probably didn't think there was that much risk.
I don't know. What I was reading is that he saw the affidavits. He read the reports from the local paper out there in San Francisco. He knew these guys were doing these horrible things in these medical units, right? People who wanted to leave and cause problems, they were taking special treatment in the medical camps, the medical unit, and they're injected with a coma-inducing medication and forced to become sex slaves, right? You're a problem. We're gonna use you.
This is Jonestown?
Yeah, Jonestown. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I haven't heard this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's in the reports. It's all in there. He knew that because he had some people were able to escape, and they gave sworn affidavits. Right. I read the affidavits. They gave sworn affidavits. What happened? He knows all this because he's even trying to figure out. He even tries to get Dan Quayle, who was a representative, to come with him from Indiana because Quayle's from Indiana. Listen to this. He tried to get Quayle to go with him and others.
Not that bullet.
Yeah, he didn't. Nobody wanted to go. No one wanted to go because they thought this guy was dangerous and crazy. So this is another issue. A lot of people already told him this is dangerous. Be careful going down there. And he thought he was safe because he took NBC News with him, the Washington Post. Hey, these were some of the biggest names in NBC at the time. Remember that. These are big names in NBC who are going out there. They're like the Brian Williams of their time, right? And he's going down there. Dude, he cleans house on everybody. No one gets out of that thing alive. So the cameraman's last action, you saw the video, was filming them shooting his goon squad, shooting at them at the plane. That's his last thing he does out there. But he knew how dangerous. So in this medical unit, he would put coma-inducing medication, enslave people, put them in hot boxes. If you were a problem, make you so big. You're Guyana. You're in the jungle. You're in South Africa. He would find boa constrictors, tie you up, and wrap it around your neck. What I was reading, to squeeze the life out of it. I mean, he was doing some really bad things to these people. He was an ultra communist. He had become a Marxist, Leninist, hardcore. He even went to visit Fidel Castro in Cuba and Havana and talk about, because he was an admirer of Castro. He was an admirer of Stalin. He was an admirer of Lenin. He even had Soviet officials come because he was creating a Soviet Marxist Leninist utopia is what he created there. And he was very, everybody gets a little bowl of rice, like Mao Zedong. Here's your bowl of rice. But they ate well. His command staff ate well. They had meats. They had everything else. But the people had to put 12-hour days in on the land and he used them as slaves. And these were disenfranchised people, mostly African blacks, that he brought from Northern California, and they went from one hell to another, an inferno. They'll cost them everything and their children.
I see. I just thought that there were families that were saying that their family members weren't communicating with them. They were in Guyana. They felt they were being held against their will. Maybe they gotten a letter like that. I didn't know that there was.
There were some that escaped and wrote affidavits that he was aware. He knew they had weapons. He knew that they were doing mock drills to prepare for this mass suicide, because he had them preparing mock drills. He would have white night drills where he said the government's coming, and he would have the guys shoot above their heads for the followers, and they crowd on the floor to keep fear instilled in them. He knew what he was getting himself into. I think that was a madman like that, to approach him like that, and then all of a sudden everybody wants to leave. He's not going to have that. Remember, they all said, "I want to leave." They'll start giving people notes. "You want to get out of here."
Yeah.
And then the video, the one guy trying to stab him. Remember that one? One guy tries to stab him, and then the reporter says, "We got to get out of here. This is getting out of control." And all of a sudden, that's when they follow them to the tarmac there and the planes, and they kill him. And if you haven't read the book, you haven't seen their interview, Jackie Spear does a great interview. She survived it. She was an assistant. She plays dead for 24 hours, taking 5 rounds in, and lays in a tarmac for 24 hours, playing dead until the army of Guyana comes in, and she's saved. They thought they had killed her, and she plays dead. You haven't seen Jackie Spear's interview? Listen to that and what she says. She later become the congresswoman in his district years later. Yeah, good stuff.
All right.
That's good.
Yeah, I did not.
Crime, man. Hey, with me, you get true crime. You get on all dimensions with me, and I can talk all day.
No way this is getting monetized. So I will let you know if it does.
and we don't even do politics. We just did true crime.
No.
I can have more fun with politics too if you wanted. That's another time.
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh.
And you can see my poster behind me here, ATF Undercover. You liked it? Thumbs up?
Yeah, that's the book. Yeah. I'm not done yet, but yeah, it was good.
Good.
It was
Thank
good.
You. I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think. We'll put we'll put the link. Is that the only one that's on Audible?
I'm working with Sean, man. He's a busy guy.
So you're getting the other ones on Audible?
I'm trying to put a lot of them on Audible.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. It's for him especially. I did the writing already, but I'm always cranking more out. I would like to put psycho killers out there on Audible, because I think people really, it's scary. And I think people need to know how dangerous serial killers are. They're everywhere. I think people don't understand how prolific they are.
I heard the other day that the average person comes in or crosses the path of something like, was it like 3 or 6 psychopaths a day that they actually come into contact with and don't even know it.
Don't even know it.
I don't know if that number is correct. I don't know how you figure that number out. But
I don't know how you figure that number, but there's many of those are Jekyll and Hyde. That's for sure. They can have a normal life, and at night they transform themselves into the sociopath, psychopath, which they have no consideration for life. They don't care. They don't care about life, existence. And what's sad is a lot of them prey on young children, and that's heartbreaking. That really is, because they never had a life, and they die horrible ways, and that's why people have to be stranger danger, be aware of your environment, and don't trust anybody you don't really know. I mean, that's what Bundy was really good at this. You remember? I don't know if you saw the documentary on Bundy.
Yeah, he was super charming. No, everybody said he was charming.
Everybody said he was charming. How about he has the crutches, right? He always has the books, and so he has the young lady say, "Can you please help me to the car?" And second, they help him in the car, boom, gets thumped in the head, and that he knew how to kill people quietly. And all these guys learned that quickly. It's not about shooting someone, making noise, or stabbing where this could be yelling and screaming. You thump them in the head, and then they break their neck or they do whatever, and that's it. Quiet, like a chicken, right? Quietly, done. And then he does bad things later. And those are more things that they would do. If you're interested in that, look into it. You see my book, but I can really describe more of the stuff that he does afterwards, which is unbelievable.
I'm not gonna read that. So, but I hear you.
Read that?
I'm not, but I hear you.
But if you like that kind of stuff, read it.
You know, how did you become an ATF? Was it something you were always interested in, that sort of thing? You know, where were you born?
Yeah. I was born in Los Angeles, in California, but raised in South Florida in Miami. And, I've always had some interest in law enforcement, obviously. You grew up in the same times. I was born in the 70s, and I grew up when I was younger in the 80s with Miami Vice, right? And I'm in South Florida, right? How cool you're seeing Don Johnson, you're watching the cool cars, the Ferraris, right? You're thinking, man, that is pretty cool. So that always was, always in the back of your head, and you're looking at that, but never thought I would ever do that kind of work, really. I kind of, thought it was cool, and I liked the guns, I liked the training, I liked putting down these bad guys, and the cocaine cowboys were huge back in the 80s. Well, years later, I go to college. I went actually up not far from where you're at, up to St. Louis University. It's a Catholic university, and I got my degree in political science and history. Then I come back to FIU in Miami. So now we're looking about the mid-90s, and I'm working my degree in international relations, and I was going to go to law school. I accepted to go to law school in Lansing, Michigan, Thomas Cooley. And, the farthest thing in my head, and I'm seeing the prices, how expensive law school is. And this is mid-90s. It's a lot more now, obviously. But even in the mid-90s, and I had a scholarship in college. I played tennis, number one for my school, but it was going to cost me about $30,000 a year, right? $30,000 a year, 3 years at least. You have housing. You got to get loans for all that stuff. And I'm thinking, and I know how competitive is law school. And some people are saying, man, that's a lot of money. But I already have my degree, very athletic. I was good shooting. My dad taught me how to shoot early in life. We'll go to the range. And my dad was a gun enthusiast. So I'm competent with a firearm, right? I'm athletic. And I'm thinking, wow. And I noticed internet just started, right? This is 1995. Windows came out. And I didn't use it in college, but I said, man, this is the future, right? So I got myself a computer, and I taught myself, because this is, people have said, what are you doing? What's emailing? What are you doing? I got myself a Yahoo account. People, Prodigy, right? People had no idea what the stuff, what dial-up, what are you doing? And it's like, well, this is the future. And people are like, no, I don't think this is going to last. I think, no, I think this is going to be.
Listen, I was one of those guys. I was like, this is going to catch on.
People are not going to spend their time online. What are you talking about? And I was like, oh no, I think it will. Especially when I saw everybody pumping, especially you get government jobs. That's why I went. So when USA, that's one of the reasons I went on there, because USA jobs was available to look at what's opening. And I was interested in going with customs. So I applied for customs, right? They were looking for Spanish speakers, which I grew up in Miami. My parents are Spanish Cuban. Grandparents from Spain went to Cuba, and then after the Castro Revolution, they came to the United States, and they lost everything. And they have my family to start over again. And I'm fortunate enough to be in this great country, and I've done quite well within one generation. The wealth they lost in Cuba, I've done quite well in this country, and it's a very fortunate, great nation that we live in. And I talk about that in my books also. So I work on that, and I put in there. And so they need people, because in Miami International Airport, most of the flights, 85% of them come from Latin America, right? So they want the customs officials to be able to engage and speak Spanish, because it's easier to catch people who are mules or smuggling drugs. You got to know what you're dealing with. And I grew up in Miami, so I grew up with all the different cultures from South America, from Latin America, from Mexico, a lot of my friends. So I knew all that, and I spoke Spanish. So I put in for the jobs, right? And I got it pretty quickly with customs. So that was something where I was going to law school, and suddenly I said, this is better, because now I'm making quite a good money. I'm going to have a good pension, right? I'm in law enforcement, and I really enjoy it. It is satisfying what kind of work I'll start doing. So you start there at the airport, you cut your teeth into like passenger processing, and then I make one of their elite teams with customs called the contraband enforcement team. And at the time, the 90s, in Miami, South Florida is making some of the biggest seizures in the country, right? You still have the Cali cartel, you still have the Medellin cartel, and they're still pumping a lot of drugs. And I go on like what the Mexicans do when they take over. They're doing it the school way with cargo. They're doing it with ships. They're doing it through Florida and the Caribbean. And that's how they're getting it through to, especially in Florida. So it wasn't uncommon, after you on the job,
so I was saying, or you're saying back then that's how they're doing it, or you're saying that's how they're doing it now?
No, back then.
Okay.
The Medellin, Cali, all those guys have collapsed. And now the Mexicans, and I've written books about how strong they've got. And they're almost more powerful than the Colombians ever were. You talk about El Chapo, El Menchos, and I'll go into that also, how strong they've become and how they've changed the game completely, and how we have to change, and I've written about that too, my experiences. So I get in there, and so I'm now in the middle of the drug war. I'm the front line, with customs.
So what do you do? I mean, what does that detail consist of?
Yeah. So Miami has a ton of cargo that comes in through Latin America, right? And also passengers, a lot of it coming in. And my job in the border, border authority is everything that comes international is subject to search, right? I don't need probable cause like I would later when I became an agent, which is a completely different game. So it was a lot easier to make seizures and make arrests, because when you come in, you have your questions, people can be searched, and you figure out what's going on right there. And with cargo side, it's everything comes in, and especially from Latin America, transition country, it wasn't uncommon for me to see, we could see 850 pounds of cocaine that was coming in grouper of fish that was coming from Guayaquil, Colombian drugs, going to Colombia, going to Ecuador, and then being shipped, because within 5-6 hours, it's in Miami. And the corruption was really bad in South Florida, right? At the airport, you had the ramp workers were dirty. You had the longshoremen were dirty. You had a ton of corruption. The money's overwhelming. And that stuff was never going to go where it's supposed to go. It gets ripped off, right? It has the bill lading, right, where it's supposed to go, but those stuff never go. When you got that kind of fish, when you look inside this major grouper, you get a kilo of coke next to a block of ice. That stuff was going to get taken out. And that was not uncommon to see 600, 800 pounds coming in and get ripped off. And that's what we got. So what does that tell you? The stuff that got in? A lot.
Yeah, what's not getting caught?
A lot. And they knew that was the quickest way to get it in, because the demand back in the 80s and 90s, and still today, unfortunately, is enormous for cocaine. I always said the way to stop the cartels, if people stop using the stuff, right? If people got the treatment, the cartels are the drug game, right? It's over. That's it.
Yeah.
We win the war on drugs. The way we win the war on drugs, and what your audience to know, is from within. From within. But a lot of these bad countries are weaponizing cocaine, especially the Nicolas Maduros from Venezuela, right? You've got countries who are really enemies, or communist enemies, and they're selling cocaine because they know that does damage to our country, their workforce, the people, their future, and everything else.
Cuba, was it Castro said it was he said the pink menace, or he said that was the best way to undermine the United States was through the importation of drugs?
Yeah, Hugo Chavez from Venezuela used to do that before he died. Yeah, from Venezuela. Cuba saw it, but Castro did not want to be called a trafficker, right? Because he saw what happened to Noriega, right? Back in the late 80s, Manuel Noriega, when he got involved, the U.S. ended up invading and bringing him over. The former president of Honduras, Hernandez, he was a big-time drug trafficker. He just got extradited to the United States. Maduro has been indicted. So
I thought I had read something about Cuba, like Castro wasn't like involved in it, but he was allowing for a period of time, he allowed planes to land or fly through
yes.
airspace.
Yeah,
and then it caught up with him, and then he was like, okay, we're done with that.
Yeah. He didn't want to get caught up with that, but he would tolerate some things, but not on the islands, because he didn't want to give the United States a chance to bring him in, because it happens to world leaders all over. They get involved in the drug game. It's a conspiracy against us in the United States, and we've had the case on, and we extradite these guys and bring them over. And El Chapo is a perfect example of what happened to him when he finally got extradited, and now he is in the Supermax in Florence, Colorado. And so he was a very, very powerful guy, and not so much. So I'm in that fascinating view, front line, right? I'm meeting a lot of people because we make a lot of seizures. So I'm networking with the FBI. I'm networking with ATF, especially DEA, Customs, at a time where Department of Treasury, and after 9/11, everything changes, right? Everybody changes. ATF will end up going to Justice. Customs will go Department of Homeland Security. It would leave Treasury. So a lot of things change. We're making a lot of good seizures. Ones that were kind of strange were like people who would swallow, like the pellets.
Yeah.
The swallowers. We would get a ton of that. I mean, it is really, we got a lot, but a lot also got through. And it's really sad because some of these people were peasants, right? They would get used, or they say, if you don't do it, and these are the cartels, they go in these villages, right? And they pretty much force these guys to do it, or they're going to hurt your family, kill the family. Some got paid. I found it, the guys who went, let's say, if you were from, Miami, or you were from Puerto Rico, and you end up flying to, Cali or something like that, and you stay for 3-4 days. Like, why are you there? What was your purpose of your trip, right? and the purpose of trip was to swallow these pellets. And I got really good at it. I mean, you could easily have 2 or 3 pounds of cocaine in you, or heroin. Heroin really started picking up in the 90s with the Colombians, right? And that's a lot of money, a lot of dope in there. But the problem with that is something, if it leaks, you'll be dead on the plane. It's so pure, you're not going to survive. So we get calls, a lot of people are dead on arrival. They're on the planes, we got to clean them up. It's not easy to pass either. So if you can't pass this stuff fast enough, even when we catch them, we would have to take them to the hospital and MIA and give them these laxatives, and it still takes a while to pass it. These cartel members, if you make it and you're in one of these hotels, which happens all the time, you can't pass the stuff fast enough, they'll put a bullet in your head, they'll gut you, and they'll take the stuff out. So a lot of times they were lucky that we caught them, because it was not good stuff for them. And even then, sometimes they still need surgery. This stuff wouldn't come out. I mean, it's real, it's risky, it's sad, it's horrible to see these people. And this is something I'm seeing firsthand. You know, a guy home I say, man, this is the war on drugs. This is how it looks like. This is what's going on. It becomes normal and natural. You feel bad because people are being used, right? And
well, it's much sexier from Don Johnson's point of view. From the Don Johnson point of view, it's much sexier. He's got the Ferrari.
You got the Ferrari, which is cool.
He folds up. Remember, he would fold up the suit. Do you remember the jacket?
Oh yeah. I mean, he had the cool colors, right?
Yeah. So far, your version of it sucks.
The version is work,
right?
Yeah. A lot of work. That's true. It's not glamorous, but you're satisfied. Or at least you're stopping that from going to somebody else that's gonna maybe hurt their life. That part there. So you see a lot of that. Miami, it's just a ton of that. They'll put it in the stems of flowers. I mean, talk about the detail of work, right? They'll hollow them out and fill them all up. That's impossible. I mean, it's really hard unless we had intelligence or a great dog to really hit that, because the x-rays are hard to reach. So they would do crazy ways you could imagine to smuggle stuff in. They would hollow out tiles, for roofing, and put a kilo in each one.
I wrote a story about a guy. That's what they did. They had the concrete pallets and concrete tiles that they were sold them in and came in with pallets.
Yes, that's a level of corruption, because that's not really going to where it's supposed to go. That's going to get ripped off, and it's going to other places. So that's how corrupt it was in the 80s and 90s and beyond. And things have changed now, and I'll talk a little bit about that. What happens? The collapse. Escobar was killed. The collapse of the Medellin Cali cartels. And then the Mexican cartels stepping up and working with the FARC, which has now changed. Even they changed now. And now they have a different name. And they're working with them. They're bringing the coke to them, and Mexico takes care of all distribution. They handle from there on. They take it all. They don't have to worry about that. You just make it, we take care of it. We go into Colombia. So the Mexicans pretty much are running Colombia and Central America. They're not just in Mexico. They're all over the region. And then, of course, on top of that, you have the collapse with the communism and socialism that's taken over the region, which really paralyzes the whole country. That's why we really have to keep an eye on what's going on in there. So I made a lot of contacts, and I said, you know what, this is cool. I don't mind doing this kind of work, but I wouldn't mind, since I dealt with a lot of agents, investigators, to take it to a next level, which is what you do as an agent. I mean, I'm not stuck to the airport now. As an agent, I get to go all over the country, all over the world, right? Make my cases about their probable cause and stuff like that. So I network a lot with FBI, ATF, DEA, and Customs. It makes sense, since I was already with Customs, I would just go over as an agent, right? Since I work a lot with these guys, but they didn't want to give up a lot of their inspectors because they know it's hard to fill those positions. So they didn't want to hire. So I had to go with other agencies and put in for them, because it's not fair to me. I wanted to be an agent. I wanted to be an investigator. I wanted to do other things. So eventually ATF was the fastest one to pick me up. Within that time, within Department of Treasury, I get picked up with them. And then a year later, at 2000, I get picked up as an ATF agent. I'm going to Tampa, Florida.
Nice. So I for clarity purposes, so here's what, because just this is what I understand. So, and I only understand this because I've written several stories. I wrote a story called American Narco, and so so you're saying, like, right, as a custom agent, like, you find the drugs, and you're like, okay, then you're notifying somebody else, and then they're setting that, trying to either follow that drug shipment and bust the guys. Is that it? Because let me give you an example. I had the story I wrote. they had shipped in marijuana in these tiles. And they allowed the shipment, like they delivered the shipment, and these guys loaded it into their warehouse, sat it there for like a week, and there was a tracking device inside the thing. And so they start unpacking the whole thing, and suddenly there's this black box with a little light on it and these wires, and they're like, oh shit. They throw it, they run, you know, but of course by that point they're pulling up, and
the gig is up.
Yeah, they bust them like 2 days later. They come and raid their house or something, their houses and stuff. But so at this point with customs, you're just saying, hey, here's what we found, and they're doing the rest of that. You wanted to actually be the guy to go
the next level. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just clarifying what the next level is.
Yeah, because they're customs inspectors, right? That's the term. I think it's changed now, but the term used to be customs inspectors, but you had arrest authority and you did everything else. And then there's the agents, the criminal investigators that go and you give them, hey, I just had this huge seizure right now with this fish, right? 850 pounds. All right. We can sometimes set up surveillance within the airport, right? Close to the airport, the warehouse. But if it's going, let's say, to New York City, right? Well, they're taking it from there.
Yeah.
We're not going to New York City. I got to stay and do my job and do the next shift and get some more dope that's coming in, because you know what? It doesn't stop. They knew if they factor those losses in, because that's part of doing business,
right?
With the Colombian cartels, they just keep on bringing it in. Okay, hey, they got this one. Guess what? We just got another 4,000 in, and that doesn't that it's good. So I wish I picked up with ATF, because sometimes you don't know, right? You take a chance. Sometimes they may say the Southwest border. Sometimes you might have to go to New York City or a big city where it's really expensive. I got fortunate enough. I stayed in Florida. I went to school, like I said, St. Louis University, just north of Tampa, in where you are, Pasco County. And I started working from there. And I was fortunate, the group I started, a lot of guys worked undercover, because you can't just go into undercover work cold like that, right? If you do that, you're going to get hurt. Right. I mean, you can watch all the Miami Vice you want, and watch all the TV shows and Donnie Brasco. And that was also very popular back in the 90s. Remember Donnie Brasco with Al Pacino and Johnny Depp? Yeah, you watch all that stuff, but it's one thing on television, right? Like you said, and one thing, the real world. And the real world is you got to know how this guy, because like I said, I grew up in Catholic schools, right? And now I have to learn this world. I learned a little bit for the drug world, which is fascinating, but now I got to work face to face undercover, where I pretend to be like these guys, and how to fool some of these guys who are hardened professional criminals. That's all they do, and make them think I'm one of them, because I'm nothing like them.
I was going to say, which is you like you said, you watch it on TV and people think, oh, I could do that. No, you can't. They spot you in a second. I used to joke around, with the guys in prison, like, we just be walking and they'd see me and they say, hey, Cox, what's up? And I go, I can't call it. And they just stop. They just start laughing. They go, stop. I go, what are you talking? I did that. I did that good. They go, no, it's even worse when you do it. They're like, you're not even close. You can't even come close to pulling out, and you can't. You just can't fake that. Yeah. It's hard. You really have to become an actor to be able to fake.
That's true.
Be able to fake that. You have to be good at it. It takes time.
It takes time. You got to practice it, and it takes years. So I had good mentors, right? I watch a lot, and you develop your own technique, right? You watch these guys. I spoke Spanish, so that's an advantage. I make sure my English was broken. I didn't sound like that. I just came to Cuba 10 años, right?
Right.
So you have to come up. I let my hair really long. I think I sent you some pictures. I don't know if you saw them yet.
I haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, seen them?
I'll check them out.
All right. I sent you some pictures. My hair was long. I had a big beard. I didn't want to get all of the tats. Some guys have, because when I got out of it, I knew I'll be done with it.
Right.
I want to go back to who I was. Because I don't want to be like, oh, great, I got this now. People say, what the heck's wrong with this? So that was never me. I never really cared for it. That wasn't my thing. So I wanted to fake enough. The beard's okay. The hair was long enough. You do the accents. You get to know the culture, get to know these guys. It was easier to deal with people. If they were non-Spanish speakers, you tell your story, who you're working with. You say, hey, these families are looking, the cartels are looking for guns, right? Because they are. And my job here is to be ATF, is to buy a lot of guns. And these guys, I don't want to fill any paperwork, right? Because I don't want to show up in no shop and put my information in there, right? So these guys will sell me guns off the street, untraceables. And you pay a premium for that, because that's what you want. And a lot of these guys have horrific criminal histories. So I dealt a lot with repeat violent offenders. I dealt a lot with gang members, armed drug traffickers, international firearms traffickers, domestic firearms traffickers. I dealt with armed home invaders, cases for murder for hires. So that was ATF's niche. What does ATF do? Alcohol, tobacco, firearms. Well, it's a small A for alcohol, a small T for tobacco, a huge F, and an immediate E for explosives. So we do a lot of gun cases. Needless to say, a lot of guns. And that's what ATF is. And so I found that fascinating. And I knew something about guns, but man, I became an expert on pretty much the Gun Control Act, NFA, National Firearms Act, and all the different weapons from machine guns, silencers, pipe bombs. You know, ATF sometimes call it with all the training. ATF stands for all the fun, because we would do a lot of shooting. I mean, I trained in handguns from pistols, revolvers, my M4, which is a short barrel rifle, right? I had shotguns, something short barrel shotguns also we were shooting. So we trained a lot of different weapons. And then we also were familiarized in case we come across different machine guns, we know what we're doing, right? Got to make sure and check all that stuff out. So that's what we did, ATF. And it's something that's early enough, you have to cut your teeth. You know, one of the guys I worked with, he was Puerto Rican, and he was involved back in the 80s in a shootout where he had a SIG 9mm. The bad guy had a SIG 9mm. He fired the round, and his round went into his gun and plugged the barrel. So he's like this, and the round goes like this. It's like 1 in a million. Damn, and Hialeah back in the 80s. So it can get ugly and wild. So we had a good time. We had some good stories, and I learned a lot from him, and him being Puerto Rican, and I saw how he tackled things and all that. So I developed my own style. We worked a lot together, and then I grew up, and then, you know what also helps? Having good informants. You have a good informants, which I developed a lot of these guys. They can pretty much, you walk on water. It's like gold. You say, hey, he vouches for you. There's no more questions. Let's do business. Hey, he said, you're the guy. Okay, man, this is what you want. No questions asked, and boom, 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 boom. This is what these guys do. But if you have a bad informant who's playing both sides, it'll destroy your investigation. Yeah, you have to have them accountable. So you really, and that's why I like to, once I have the introduction, I cut them out.
Yeah.
Done. And I want to deal with the drama with an informant. They can ruin your case. I put too much hard work, because ATF is a very smaller outfit than the FBI or DEA, right? We have less than 3,000 agents, I think 2,800, right? FBI has 4 times that, enormous size. So we just can't delegate, hey, I need you to do surveillance. I need you to do undercover. I'm the case. I had to do everything. I'm the undercover. I'm the case agent, right? I deal with property. I deal with my own intelligence workup. I wear all the different hats because you have to, because we're a smaller outfit. If you want to do the bigger cases. Now, if you want to small, you don't do that.
Right. I was going to say the informant thing, I'm researching a story right now, and it's like, it's funny, you know, you do all the incident reports. You read through the incident reports, and the first thing they do, like literally, obviously this guy got busted. You know, he got busted. I think he got busted for, I think it was for a gun, actually. Mm-hmm. And then he goes and he makes they have him make a couple of meth buys, you know, and he's just wired. They're just control buys. Then they have him eventually introduce, you know, his boss, right, which is the undercover. Then the undercover goes with him on a couple of buys. Sure. Then just the undercover buys, and then they cut the informant out. And, you know, and to me, like, having been in prison, I realized that the problem is, like, if you can't let him keep buying. You can't let the informant keep buying, because first of all, he's unreliable. He's got a record. And then what happens if he gets busted for something else? You know, you can't put him on the stand like, oh, since then you've been busted for this and this, like, and he has a huge incentive to lie, and the agent doesn't. So, you know, you want to put somebody on the stand, you want it to be the agent.
That's right. A clean jacket.
He introduced me. Here's what I did. I bought a kilo over the course of the next month.
Yeah. Or 2 months. That's the best way to do it. You have to, because, and unfortunately some of these guys have drug addictions, right?
Yeah.
They keep on doing stuff. They get messed up, and they're not right when they're high, right? And they do stupid things. So those are the factors you got to get into. That's why I was fortunate. Some people don't want to do undercover work. Not for everybody. I liked it. I really decided I kind of like playing the role. And I dealt with all kinds of people. I just told you about the variety, but also the variety of people from different Hispanic groups, different blacks, different other European groups, right? Just a variety of people. And because it worked and what I was doing, it makes sense. It's based on what's really going on. The cartels have people. They need guns, right? And by the way, not only buying the guns, but I also like selling some drugs on the side. What else do you have for personal or for other use? So I buy dope and guns. Sometimes you come across some other stuff. Hey, I have also some body armor. You're looking for the body? Yeah, I'll take some ballistic armor. And it's amazing what people start telling you and what they do and what else it leads to. Hey, I'm also doing this too. Hey, this guy is also into explosives or into this. Oh, hey, this guy's selling a lot of cigarettes without tax stamps. We do those cases too, a lot less. But yeah, we do all that stuff. So it really opens up and people talk and they feel confident with you. You get a lot of information. And I had everything, like I said, for trial purposes, I wanted to make it like a movie, right? I wanted the jury to feel comfortable. First of all, I had to make the prosecutor feel comfortable. And once he feels comfortable, then the jury.
Do you hear that?
Yes.
Can you hold on a second?
Sure.
Sorry.
No worries.
I don't even know what that is, but here's the funny thing about it. Since I'm speaking with you, is my wife's ex-boyfriend was arrested for he had a dispute with a guy over I'm pretty sure, I think it was drugs or something, and he made a bomb.
Oh no.
And left it for the guy. It didn't go off.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
But he ended up going to jail for it. And like he's on like the no-fly list. And so every time I get a package and I walk out, my first thought when I see the package is,
yeah, I would too.
Please let this guy, please let this really be from Amazon. And I keep, it's so funny.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes I get deliveries. It's just there. And I don't unwrap it. My girlfriend comes in. I'm like, you're unlocking it. You're opening that.
It's not uncomfortable. A lot of people get into making these pipe bombs, right? And they tighten them up in there, but it's also very dangerous. If you don't know how you do it right, they can let the flip too early and explodes, or they have damage. It's very volatile.
I actually had a friend that was making a pipe bomb when he was like 15, 16 years old, and it exploded, blew his hands off. The shrapnel, like he bled out within a minute.
Oh no!
But he died, and just a kid, just being stupid. Thought it was cool. Had made a couple small ones, and just playing. Never once thinking to himself like, "Hey, this could be it.
This could be it."
You understand what you're playing with, right? Like this isn't a joke.
No, it isn't like playing with like firecrackers and stuff like that. It's even you might lose your finger or something. You're not careful with it. But a pipe bomb. That's no joke. And then these guys get really nasty with it. Some of them put like shrapnel inside to really do some serious damage. So, so that's the kind of case I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure for the jury and for the prosecutor that we had good video, right? I wanted to make sure it is clear. It's like watching a movie. I wanted the jury to see, okay, this is the evidence. Watch the movie. And that's a big difference you see between the federal side and state and local, right? Especially with the local sometimes. It gets a little bit different. Federal, we have a little more time to take our time with the case, make it the strongest case we can, and get as many people as possible. That's why we have a little more time, and it's different. That's why I like the federal system. We have a chance to really make the cases bigger and stronger, and we have good prosecutors. A lot of them are career prosecutors, and they really know how to make good cases. So that's what I did. I wanted to make sure, undercover wise, I had. And sometimes with informants, there's always issues with the equipment. Sometimes. They could be messed up and everything else. So they're not professionals, right? They didn't go to school for this. They don't understand case law. They don't understand entrapment, right? You want to make sure people understand, this is what they do. This is what they're involved in. You don't want to bring someone who's not involved in this kind of work. They're actively doing this. They're predisposed. This is what they do. And,
right.
and they have the history of doing this, right? So these are all the factors you got to come. As a professional, you bring that to the table. And informants are, I hate to say it, necessary evil. Right? Because they are the eyes and ears in the street. Because I can't live in the street, right? The reality is I pretend to.
Right.
And then I go back to the office. I got to do a lot of paperwork. I got to go to the prosecutor. I got to deal with evidence. I got to talk and give a briefing. So it's a whole different world, and you just show up. But the good thing about them, even though it would cut them out, remember their eyes and ears. They can still tell you, hey, I heard so-and-so had some doubts about you.
Mm-hmm.
I need to tighten this up a little bit. When you come back with me and let's have another conversation with them, make sure you vouch for me and make sure, hey, this is the guy, man. There's nothing to worry about. So those are good things. You keep them a distance, but you still have to make sure that they're listening to what's going on, because that's important. Because the last thing you want to do is get caught off guard. And I was fortunate enough. I mean, there's always some hairy close moments, right? But you got to have. And I'll give you an example. And I put it in my book, ATF Undercover, which I talk about. And this happens. And I did a lot of work in Pasco County, and had an undercover apartment in Wesley Chapel. I did.
Where I live.
I know. I did. And I used to live there in West Chapel, and then moved down south when I first started working out there. A lot cheaper than Tampa in 2000. I know 54 is completely different than it was 20 some years ago.
Well, I live off 56. 54 turns into 56. So, but yeah, it's even further. Like it's a 15-minute drive to 75 from where I live. It's like living in the Truman Show, though. I mean, the houses everything's brand new. Everything's underground. All the houses look similar. I mean, it's a great area. Like everybody, it's funny on my street. There's 2 sheriff's deputies. There's like an insurance salesman. There's a couple bankers. Like I'm the riffraff on the street. So,
you're at 56. You're not too far from Lando Lakes either, then.
No, very, very close.
Very close.
Yeah,
I got to know. Yeah, I got to know Pasco really well from making the cases. So I got to know Pasco. I don't know how much you know Pasco County, but I got to know all the way to New Port Richey, the Hudson area, even across to New York Tarpon Springs, and going to Zephyr Hills. So this takes place. I'll tell you this story here. This happens in Zephyr Hills. Zephyr Hills, people who don't know, Zephyr Hills or Dade City. At the time I was working, I'll say it was back in 2000 to 2012. And this story takes place in 2009, 2010. So this is the Dade City, Pasco I'm talking about. And the Mexicans were picking it up, right? They're moving a lot of meth. There's no more meth labs. There's still some, but now they're bringing a lot of the meth from Mexico. They're just piping it in. And that whole area became a big pipeline, which I was saying. I think a lot of still drugs and a lot of Mexicans still out there, which this is where everything's changed a lot. And this is a trailer. I meet with this guy. He's a career criminal, drug trafficker, right? I had an informant make an introduction. First time me and him are sitting in the car together. I meet him out 301. And we're going to drive to these trailers, shady trailers, predominantly Hispanic, right? And he's talking to me. He's telling me his history. He said, man, yeah, I'll get you these guns and all that. But I used to move a lot of coke, a lot of product. I was moving 2 or 3 easy kilos a week. I was like, okay. So I said, you tell me. I mean, he just got out. He wants to get back into the game. This is what he does. I said, okay. So he took me there. He's a non-Spanish speaker. And he takes me to the trailers, and he said, hey, this is my guy here. He has the guns. Some guys give a heads up, a little nervous about this. They say sometimes guys who buy guns a lot are feds. I said, no, man, I'm no fed. Of course, you got to deny that. You're not going to.
You got me.
You got me in there. It's over. Let me take you back home. No, that's going to happen. So you deny that. And he goes in there. And I talked to his guy who's there. He's Hispanic, bullhead, right? And we're talking a little bit in Spanish. He's testing me out, which is fine. And he goes in a trailer. So him and I are sitting outside in my truck, and I see more people. We get out of the car, and he's on one side, I'm on the other side, and I can see there are a lot more people going to the other side of the trailer. Right? A lot more people going inside. He can't see that. I can see that. Right? So I can see that. So you got to have instincts to say, listen, I just met you guys. The deal we're supposed to be doing is for an AK-47 with 75-round drum, 2 Glock pistols, almost an ounce of meth for a little over $3,000, right? And I don't feel comfortable. He goes, hey, listen, the stuff's inside, but these guys don't want to bring it out. So I drove out here. Normally what you do is you wrap it up, you bring in the car real quick, and we're done. I get the hell out of here, right? And he said, but he wants to come in. You go inside. I was like, and I know there's more people coming in. And he doesn't know that I know that already. So I'm just like, no, dude, I don't want to meet anybody. I said, no, it's fine. I said, no. And I said, okay, what do you give me the money? And I'll get it for you. I said, no, I'm not doing I think what's going to happen is you're going to walk away with 3,000. I'm going to have a bigger headache to deal with to chase you and everybody else who just stole my money, that was going to be a rip. So I said, I'll give you 5 minutes. I'm going to sit in the car. Either you bring it or I'm out of here. Because and that's the beauty of being the case agent and the undercover, is that I don't feel the pressure. Let's say I was just the undercover and I'm working for somebody else, working their case, right? Sometimes you feel the pressure, you want to make it happen. For me, I'm both. And if it happens, great. If not, I got a lot of work. I got other people I'm dealing with. I got you today. I got someone else tomorrow, right? So I don't ever felt that kind of pressure. I had to make it happen because I want to go home at the end. That's the most important thing. No deals. 5 minutes later, a Honda Odyssey pulls up. Guy pops up with an AK-47, 75-round drum. So him and I talk. He sells me the gun. I take a look at it. I gave him the money for that, and then he has a backpack. Another friend had brought him, and he sells me the Glocks with the crystal meth. And I said, "Hey, dude, next time, just keep it between us, and I don't want to deal with this circus next time." And he understood. Right. And he understood that.
So what?
I think it was testimony.
Right. So why would you go? Why if the AK wasn't in there, they showed up later. Like, why am I going in the trailer? Like, why? What do you think they were trying to get you in the trailer for?
I think they want to rip me off.
Oh, okay.
I think they wasn't money.
So okay.
Yeah. I think they want to rip me off. That's what I think. They want to take my $3,000, $3,400, and hit me. He said, "Hey, man, this could be easy hit right here, and we don't have to sell anything." Because you don't know. So some of these these are gang members, by the way. These aren't average. So these are shitty trailer in Zephyr Hills. There's a lot of gangs in that area. I want you to understand a lot of Hispanic gangs, a lot of gang members, sell a lot of meth, a lot of heroin, armed to the teeth.
I don't think of Zephyr Hills and
that's what I think of
like that at all. I mean, it's very rural. Like you know what I'm saying. It seems like it's
read my book and I'll give example after example of that area. Go in there and stuff like that. It is hot. And that's when I was there. I think it's gotten worse, what I've seen, because the cartels have just gotten stronger. When I was there, they were coming up. El Chapo was good. Sinaloa is strong. But now you have the rise of CJNG, with Jalisco New Generation Cartel. Yeah. Major rival for Sinaloa, right? El Mencho, he's now the big player. Cervantes, right? And they're going to war. And all these guys, El Chapo, El Mencho, give your audience a little background. All these guys came out of absolute poverty. I mean, they were selling avocados and oranges in the street, and now have risen to be big drug lords where their assets are over $50 billion. That's according to the Mexican government and the U.S. government. So you tell me they're not making drug lords in Mexico when these guys and most of these guys are illiterate. They dropped out of school when they're in the 4th or 5th grade, right? But what are they good at? They're good at killing.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to kill.
Yeah, they're brutal.
They're brutal.
Brutal. Is it El Mayo, which was Chapo's, who basically started the Sinaloa, right? With and then El Chapo kind of came in right after. But I was gonna say El Mayo, like I heard that he still drives like an old. He's worth billions and billions or whatever, and he still drives an old pickup truck.
That's smart.
Around town, like he's not, he lives in a different places, and same thing with El Chapo. He's really good at surviving. He was up until the United States got him, but he was really good at surviving, through brutality and just forethinking, like always have an escape route, always be thinking, don't keep staying in the same place, change locations,
That's what El Chapo was nicknamed also El Rápido, the quick one. He was the master of the tunnels, right? I remember that great tunnel he had the second time he was captured underneath that
prison.
Unbelievable.
Now, what's funny about that? I had read that like the area that was where the prison is, it was actually the new generation that was in charge of digging, even though they're rivals, of digging the tunnel.
Yeah, but at that time, I think they were still 2015. Yeah, they began to go a little bit sideways. Not as bad as now, but it would get a lot worse. But what a corruption! That's one of the things I talk about. Is that we don't have a equal partner in the war on drugs. The corruption in Mexico is so unbelievable, and that's the reason I bring that up, because during the trial for El Chapo in New York, it was brought. These are government witnesses testified that El Chapo offered, this is before Lopez Obrador, the president before that, with Peña Nieto, he offered him of a bribe. Nieto wanted, allegedly, according to court documents, he wanted a $250 million payout. So we want to look for El Chapo. They said, you don't worry about it. You can be a fugitive for another 15 years, right? He said, no, I'll pay you $100 million. And allegedly, witnesses said, testified, he took it. He took it. So if the top of the Mexican government is on the take, then we have no chance. And this is what the battles we're fighting. You know, you see case after general, attorney general. I mean, just keep on getting arrested for being involved in money laundering and involved in all this stuff here. And this guy El Mencho out of CJNG, he was former law enforcement. He was out of Jalisco, right? He was involved. So a lot of these guys know the game. They know it. And he's the same way we just talked about at Mayo when I was reading Guadalajara, because now it's the battle for Guadalajara, which is where a lot of stuff is going on. But he looks like he's won because they're trying to do a split. You know how everything is. Everybody wants to be king, right?
Yeah.
One day you're the king, they want to take you out, right? El Mencho had guys he brought in that was former Millennium Cartel guys that split, right? And they want to take over. And this guy's name is escaping right now. But if you look at the videos, he has him tortured, right? Wrapped up, kill him, and then left at the park bench. This is what happens when people betray El Mencho, right? And stuff like that. So right now, it seems like he still has the lockdown in Guadalajara, which is very important for him. And he's the same guy that you're talking about, Mayo. He likes to live modestly. Not like Escobar, right? That lived in that big palace, right? Everybody knew where he lived and where he was at, but he bribed everybody. These guys have to low key. El Chapo's bounty was $5 million, right? At his peak when he escaped the second time. After Sean Penn and Kate Del Castillo interviewed him. And said, if you haven't seen that interview and video, man, you guys need to check that out. Rolling Stone magazine.
That's
unbelievable. Great. Unbelievable stuff. I can't believe Sean Penn did that, because you don't know how
listen, they don't care. El Chapo didn't even know who he was. Really? Like, he's probably thinking, well, my celebrity will probably help me a little bit or keep me safe a little bit. No, it won't. He didn't even know who you are.
No, I would not have done that. That could have got really ugly. And they almost caught him after the interview because they were tracking the Mexican actress Castillo's phone. U.S. authorities were tracking and just missed him barely, just barely. It will take a few more years to finally catch him again, and they will not escape the third time. Not escape a third time.
They obviously realized, like, look, we're just not going to be able to keep this guy here. We have to send him to the United States.
And that's so sad, because you know what? Now we have the costs, right? Now the U.S. tax dollar has to pay for keeping this guy for life, feeding him, the expenses, legal, everything we pay, because the Mexican government is so corrupt, they couldn't do it themselves. And it's case after case like this. Very sad. Very sad situation.
You know, it's funny. Like I first of all, people are always, the U.S. government's corrupt. Like, look, there's some corruption here and there, but you have no idea what it's like in other countries.
That's true.
In other countries, and not just that, it's like, look, you're a police officer in Mexico making $600 or $700 a month.
Nothing.
That's nothing. Like I get it. You shouldn't, you shouldn't be involved in corruption. You should be, but it's hard not to be, not only for the money, but it's dangerous. Like, if you end up being a cop, like it's kind of like the what was it? Shoot, I was going to say there was the movie about it.
El Cholo was his name. El Cholo was a guy who his rival. They got wrapped up and executed. Look up his name, El Cholo. Oh. Look at the video. He's getting. You see the guy from CJ&G behind him in masks, and next thing you know, he ends up in a park bench. See the pictures, wrapped up. He was tortured, and said, "This is what happened to El Cholo, the traitor." You don't play. You don't play.
It's just it's a horrible situation in general.
Yeah.
So, when you were talking about like the higher up, upper echelon of the government, I have a buddy named Juan Sanchez who was in Venezuela, right? He was a Venezuelan citizen, came to the United States, started doing real estate, doing very well. 2008 financial crisis hits. His subdivisions and the developments start going under. He needs money. So he goes to Venezuela and he starts pitching to Venezuelans, like, hey, you should invest. And so people in the government invest. Basically, the equivalent of the U.S. Or the head, like the U.S. attorney here, right? The U.S. Attorney General in Venezuela ends up investing with him. Multiple people in the government investing, but he finds out later when Juan gets caught, the money they're investing is money they're laundering for Mexico.
For the cartels.
For the cartels through Venezuela. They give it to Juan. Juan loses the money.
Oh, no.
And now they're threatening to kill him. He actually goes back to Venezuela. They kidnap him for 4 or 5 days. He eventually escapes, gets on a plane, flies back to the United States. But when he gets caught, he eventually obviously cooperates. He cooperates, and the FBI comes in, and the CIA comes in. He said they never said CIA, but they never showed badges, anything. My lawyer told me I think they were CIA. They come in and they say, listen, we looked at your phone. We see phone numbers and names in here of people that we've had indicted from Venezuela that are in the government. And so they start asking him, you know this guy? You know this guy? He goes, yeah, I know that guy. And they said, we've had him indicted on a sealed indictment. We can't get him. But, so they asked him what happened. He tells them. And he says, do you want me to get him to come to the United States? And they go, yeah, but he would never do that. He's not that stupid. And they go, and Juan goes, no, he's that stupid. He goes, you don't get to become, you don't get that high in the government you don't get it through brains. You get it through brutality.
That's true.
So he contacts him because the guy had asked him to try and get him a travel permit in the United States so he could bring his family into the United States to visit Disney World.
Mm-hmm.
So he contacts him, sends him an email. No, that's not it. But his visa had been denied by the State Department. He said, all you have to do is have the U.S. Embassy write him a letter saying that it was a mistake and it's been approved and he can come. They wrote him a letter. He said, literally, we're talking about 3 days later, he's on a plane, flies into Miami, and they arrest him in the airport in Miami with his family thinking they're going to Disney World.
Disney World. No. And no, he's going to the Slammer now.
You know what happened was he rolled over on a bunch of people. He ended up getting like 4 years or something and got back out.
Oh, did he?
Massive indictment.
These guys do. It's like at that level, you got to cooperate. You got to flip. You got to turn. If one thing I've noticed, all these guys do, because if you don't, you get the hammer. You get slammed. You get the most time. So talking about Venezuela, man. Venezuela, with Nicolas Maduro now, it's a narco state. It has become he's not a communist anymore. And remember him, Hugo Chavez? This guy's no communist. This guy, it's all about making money, but the people suffer. He keeps them suffering. This guy's a dictator. He's a narco dictator. He's been indicted by our government, and to bring more. But you know what upsets me is a little politics here. But we'll talk a little bit everything. My book's all about this. But Joe Biden threw him a lifeline. Administration to see if Chevron go back there and get oil pumped up because we don't want to deal with the Russians, right? We're tired of the Saudis, with the stuff he's done, Mohammed bin Salman. So it's like we want to work with the Venezuelans with all the stuff this guy's done. He said atrocities to his people. If you're not about him, you're done. And that's why Miami, has been transformed with the Venezuelans coming over, like the Cubans did, from the 60s on. The Venezuelans have brought a lot of money. Doral, I don't know if you're familiar with South Florida, has changed immensely with the Venezuelans. A lot of the money has come over, transformed it. So that's what you're seeing. And people say, well, man, America has, the United States has issues. I live in Virginia now, and I was fortunate enough to, I like to travel, like history. My background, I told you political science and history. I went to Mount Vernon, and I've gone to Monticello. Mount Vernon is Washington's home, and then Monticello, Jefferson's home. And I visited there, and even it's true, 1797, Washington had just finished his second term, will not run for a third term, does not want to be seen like King George or a dictator. He says, even then applies today. We had issues, there's no perfect democracy. It's not a perfect system, but it's the best that's out there. And I think it applies today, the same thing. It's not perfect, people. We don't have a perfect system, but it's the best It's the best that's out there. Trust me, I've seen, I studied politics internationally, the corruption. Yeah, we're going to have corrupt officials. We're going to have problems, but it's the best that's out there. So that's where we're at with the corruption in Mexico. But the Mexican government, it's probably worse. I think it's stronger than the Colombians were, because their reach is all over Central America. It's all over South America, and they have a lot of people in the United States, and they're reaching not just in customs officials, not just with politicians, but you see it deeper and deeper in our country because the money is so big and so out there, and the corruption is big. It's corrupt here, but they're corrupting here. So what are our solutions? We need to deal with the problem within. Treatment. We need people to get off it. We need people to work on their addictions, because it's just going to get worse. And they want to, like Maduro said, like I said, they're weaponizing cocaine to help destroy this country. They think it's going to fall like a rotten apple from within. People are going to fall and break, and that's what they're trying to do.
So it's funny. So I wish, why can't I remember the name of this book? I used to know it too. And trust me, somebody in the comment section will tell me the name of the book. It was actually came out probably 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. And it's about, there's an evangelist, right? Like a preacher, super rich preacher. His son gets caught. He has a security detail, right? Like he's got several of these mega churches. He has a security detail, and one of the lead security agent or security person in charge of his security detail is a former DEA agent that had to retire because of brutality. Like he'd been caught multiple times, like, and he'd been written up. He finally retires. Well, I'll call him the preacher. The preacher's son ends up getting caught like smoking, doing drugs or something. One of his friend ODs on coke or something. I forget what it was. But he's upset, and he ends up venting to this former DEA agent. So his security, head of security. So his head of security, he's like, he says, how much money do I give, every month, every year? He's like, oh, like $1 million to these programs. And he goes, is it even helping? He's like, no, it's not this is going to do nothing. And he says, well, what can end this? And he said, well, it's so out of control that the government can't. It's everything they can do to try and keep it stemmed. If you could get it pulled back a little bit, then they could probably get a better handle on it. And he said, there's an idea we used to kick around at the DEA. And he said, well, what was that? He said, if you poisoned the drug supply, then the hardcore, he said, the casual users aren't the problem. He said, casual users would just stop. He said, but the drug addicts, he said, they would have to seek some kind of rehabs.
Any rehab, yeah.
Right. And so he ends up going to somewhere, and who knows where, Brazil, I forget where it was, but someplace, and he ends up finding this chemist, and he ends up getting these mushrooms that allows them to poison the drug supply, right? Like coke. And he of course, he gets a bunch of retired DEA agents, friends of his to help him. There's a group of like 6 of them. And he ends up poisoning a whole bunch of drugs. And what happens is the hardcore users, they inhale it, and then if they do enough of it, it ends up breaking down and shutting down their livers, and they die. So they end up doing this on a massive scale.
Oh my gosh.
And I listen, and of course what happens is it works. But the problem is what he tells the preacher is like, there will be, some people will get sick. There may be a few deaths. And he knows the reality is there's going to be thousands. And there ends up being tens of thousands of deaths because they do it on such a massive scale. And
but this is fiction. This is fiction.
It's fiction. Yeah, it's fiction, but it's a great book. I mean, keep in mind how much I read when I was locked up. It was just really well written, researched. How much was possible, I don't know, but it really, and the guy's got the statistics and the whole thing, and you really realize reading the book like what a massive issue it is.
Oh, it is. It is. And another way to attack it was when you're seeing here, you see in Virginia all over the country, and it started with marijuana. It's getting legalized all over the country, right?
Right.
Recreational use. You take because the Mexican cartels make a lot of money cultivating marijuana. So you take that away from them, that's going to hurt their profits a lot too. So I think marijuana, you're seeing it. I mean, I know Florida is just medical, but I know Virginia got it approved for recreational. So it is going all over in the Northeast, the Midwest, of course, the West Coast, up and down is approved for recreational. So that's where you're seeing it. It's going that way. I think marijuana, Thomas Jefferson even grew marijuana in Monticello, right? Founding fathers. I mean, marijuana's been around for hundreds of thousands of years. People have been smoking it, right? It's not my thing. I don't like getting high. I don't like, smoking my lungs. But if some people, that's what they want, like cigarette smoking, I'd rather not be around it, right? I like to eat away from that. I don't like to be around any of that stuff here. But some people like it. I think the edibles now, are legal in every state. It gets you high. Those edibles.
Right.
Have you seen that? That's everywhere now.
Yeah. I mean, drugs were just never my thing. But this is the thing. I definitely agree that, to me, look, if you took the money they spent on the prison population and you made going to rehabs affordable, and you did more education, and you legalize a lot of those substances, I think would alleviate the problem considerably. And it'd be detrimental to the cartels.
Absolutely, because then you're taxing it here. We're making the money, right? The states and the federal system. So you have to eliminate marijuana from being a Schedule I banned substance, right? That's the first thing, because you can do all the things at the state level, but if you're still you use marijuana, you want to buy a firearm, and an FFL, Federal Firearms Licensee, you're still prohibited. You can't do that because you're still a drug user, right? So if you're a drug user, you can't do that. Marijuana is still on the list there. So a lot of things, I know that's passed in the House of Representatives, that needs to be approved in the Senate to start making this nationwide, because I've seen it firsthand. I think we're wasting time in the judicial system, clogging the judicial system, when you have these petty cases. ATF went after the worst of the worst, right? The most violent. That's what you have to focus on. The most violent repeat offenders, armed traffickers, armed home invaders, guys who want to commit murder for hire, international traffickers. That's gun traffickers. That's what we have to focus on. Not guys who have some weed they want to smoke and they're doing this on the side. I mean, all those places want to have a ZT policy, zero tolerance. That's a waste of time. That's you're clogging the system on these people should be treated for health issues, not criminal. They shouldn't criminalize these people, in my opinion. This is coming from a guy who's been 26 years in law enforcement, who have seen it, right? I just think it is a waste of our tax dollars. It's a waste of time. And we're building more prisons. We need to focus on, and the court system gets overwhelmed with it also. And you don't want any of that. So we have to be smarter. It's marijuana. Yes. Hey, we learn the lesson from Prohibition. I wrote a book about it, right? The rise of the outfit here, the Chicago crime bosses. And that's what made Al Capone. That's what made these guys a violence, because it was illegal, right? And then once we legalize it, well, there goes that. And all of a sudden, the governments are making the money, right? They're getting taxed. And everybody can enjoy themselves. You're not being criminalized for having a beer or drinking whiskey, which was ridiculous, right? The same thing, in my opinion, should apply to marijuana. The other drugs, a little bit tougher to deal with, but we have to come up with solutions. But marijuana is a first gateway, I think, with that. Because, I mean, everybody in college, you see how many people in college have to go sometimes to really bad areas to get some weed, right?
Right. End up getting hurt, robbed.
You just go to the store, right? It's illegal. We have to be smart about it. Obviously, I don't want to be around it, and I don't want to smell it, because I went to Kingston do some work for training, and everywhere in Kingston you could smell it. The ganja, as they say, ganja man, right? It's everywhere. And I really don't. I didn't care for that smell. That's strong.
Kingston in Jamaica, right?
Right, Kingston, Jamaica. Okay. They have a lot. They grow a lot of weed. They call it ganja over there.
Oh, listen. And there's places in Jamaica you can't even go.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, the government doesn't go.
Yeah.
Like when I went to Jamaica, it's funny. I was on the run and I went to Jamaica, and we were to have the taxi driver. He's like driving us around, and we were like, "Hey, let's go here, let's go here." And he was like, "Yeah, you can't go there." And he was like, "Listen," he's like, "the police don't go there. Like, you definitely aren't going there." He's like, "We're not going there in my cab." Yeah. And it was like, wow, it was like, it's that bad? Like, what do you mean the police don't go? He's like, no, it's that section, that area is completely owned and operated by this one gang,
Jamaican posse, whoever. Yeah. They just had a huge arrest. I think about 5-7 years ago. Guy's name was Coke, like from cocaine.
Right.
Yeah, and the people in Kingston were rioting because he obviously, they provide a lot of work, and it's like an Escobar type, right? They also give a lot to the community, just like Chapo did, Guzman. They give a lot, they help a lot. They know that the little people, they want to take care of little people, so they kind of help the little people a lot, because they work for their organization and do stuff like that. That's the same mentality you saw out there in Kingston. Yeah, a lot of people just want to go. If I tell them to go to Jamaica, I was gonna maybe work there as an attaché. But once I saw first after 2 weeks there how the conditions were, no way. I wouldn't bring my family, that's for sure. And I definitely wouldn't go with my family in Mexico, because because at the end of my career, I promoted and I went to ATF headquarters, and I worked there 2 years, and I was helping briefing the director case with one in command for the Central Region, who now is number 2 command for ATF right now. So that's a good contact that I have. And working and talking and briefing some of the most sensitive cases that ATF was working. And then I was going to maybe transfer to Mexico, but then with the issue with Lopez Obrador, what was going on, who's the president of Mexico, they renounced our diplomatic immunity status as agents. So you think I'm going to go to Mexico and they don't want to carry firearms. So they don't want you armed. They don't want you to have diplomatic immunity. And I'm going to be kidnapped with my family? I said, no way. I said, I'm eligible to retire. I did my time up here. I enjoyed my career. Thank you so much. And then I got into writing.
Right.
I did a nice trip in writing. Well, I've been, writing like this by a year and a half now, since I've been retired. But I used to write a lot of reports, right? You get good and really detailed in writing a lot. So I said, and I always had a thing for it. I like reading. I'm always fascinated with history and political science and current events. I'm always reading information. So that's what a lot of my books are. I got fiction, nonfiction, but I do a lot of politics. I do a lot of organized crime. And I realized, when I started writing, and I'm not here to promote anybody, but I had a family member. She was in the publishing industry for over 20 years, right? She got laid off, and I was talking to her, and she said, it's hard at the time. COVID was still around, right? And it was such a huge backlog. And I said, you might want to look at Kindle and with Amazon, because you can self-publish. Yeah. And you don't have to wait for anybody, right? And you get like 80-20, especially digital books, like 75-25, right? So, screen on both ends. It's screen for my pocketbook and a screen for the environment when you do the digital books, right? And then I'm now doing audio too. And shout out to Sean Milo for that. We both know him. He's a great guy. And that should be coming out, my book. If you're not everybody's a big reader. And I've been told a lot of people would rather listen to it. Yeah. And it's a great, great story. I encourage people to listen to these books and go Audible. It should be out hopefully in about a month or less. It'll be out there. So I looked into it, and it worked for me because I go at my pace. I do whatever subject matter, because you know how it is. A publisher, you get rid of the middleman who only cares about making money. It's not about always making money. It's about putting something out there which I want to talk about, read about.
Right. I was gonna say also, as a writer, you'll make $6, $6.50, $7 on a book that you sell on Amazon, and if the publisher sells it, you're making $1.15, $1.35. And look, when I was locked up, I got a book deal. They were in Barnes and Nobles. That's great. Like how exciting is that? That's super cool. But in the end, like 6 months ago. This is 5 years later. 6 months ago is the first time I actually got a small check from them because it took that long to pay back the advance they gave me. They gave me like a $3,500 advance. And listen, in prison, $3,500 is a lot of money. But, it just took that long to even pay it back.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, you would have made a lot more money with Kindle for sure.
Yeah.
And I like doing all. I mean, and I enjoy, just like I did my cases. I wore many hats. Right. I play that with my books. I do my own book covers. I do my own editing. I write the material. I choose what I'm going to write about. I just did a book that just came out. I think I forwarded to you on Facebook, a messenger on Jim Jones, right? In Jonestown, the massacre, because it's now 45 years. And I want to do a little bit deeper dive in that. And I found some pretty interesting things in there and mistakes that were made. And I thought things, and I also give my opinion, right? Based on my expertise.
Right.
There's a worse U.S. cult mass murder in U.S. history. Almost 950 dead, right?
I was gonna say almost 1,000 people, or something like 150 kids or 200 kids or something. How many kids?
More than that. More than that. That's horrible. You could hear, if you haven't heard the Jim Jones tape, because he recorded the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should hear that.
Horrible.
Horrible. My kids are crying and everything else. And the mother, his wife, Marcelina, I believe her name was, she's telling him, because these are his kids too, he's poisoning. He said, let the kids live. And he goes, and just like this, he goes, mother, 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 please. You know, he's already crazy. Mother, please. Like, and very sarcastic and nasty. Like, says, you know, children, hurry, because he already killed the congressman, right? He had his goons go out and already kill the congressman, Leo Ryan, and his entourage, NBC and everybody else, Washington Post. They gunned him down because they knew they had 20 defectors. He knew it was over. It was over in Guyana. And then he said, when they came back, said, hey, some escaped. He knew it was over. He knew they were going to come down, put him in jail, shut it all down. And he was so selfish. He'd rather everybody kill themselves to make that statement. He called it the suicidal revolution, which is insanity. All these people's lives that came in for a better life, lost their lives. Drinking the Kool-Aid. That's what it's called. Right. Drinking the Kool-Aid.
It wasn't even Kool-Aid.
Flavor Aid. Yeah.
Flavor Aid. But poor Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Poor Kool-Aid got hit with Kool-Aid, drinking the Kool-Aid this whole time. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. What's that from Kool-Aid?
Flavor Aid.
But I was going to say, take the problem is everybody always focuses on the murder, right? The mass suicide. If you remove that though, his rise is amazing.
Oh my God.
His ability to manipulate is amazing. And the fact that he starts Jonestown and then the senator shows up and they realize what's happening. Congressman's going to go back to the United States. He's going to tell everybody. They're going to obviously send over the troops and grab these guys. I mean, it's coming down. But then he actually sends his guys to kill him.
That's unbelievable.
And they do, like, that story. That's the great thing of what I love about nonfiction. You couldn't come up with that.
No,
like that is so bizarre. It you know the term truth is stranger than fiction.
It's true. I agree.
If you told someone that and it hadn't happened, they'd be like, "Yeah, bro, that's just like it's too out there to believe."
Sure, I agree.
Everybody would like that's just too, but it happened. It's an amazing story.
He's another guy that grew up, and I didn't know his background until I researched. This is the reason why I do stuff like this. I love researching nonfiction. I love it. And I've done a lot of these. So if you like what we're talking about, check out the book, please. It's on Amazon. It just came out. But with him, he came out of absolute poverty.
Yeah.
Abject poverty. I mean, out of Indiana, right? In Lynn, Indiana. His father was a World War I veteran who suffered serious chemical attacks. You know how the war was in the trenches, right?
Yeah.
He couldn't breathe. He couldn't work, couldn't do anything. Guy was disabled pretty much. And the pension was horrible back then. And then they had the Great Depression. They lost their home. The government, the company, the mortgage company seized it. And the family had to buy him a shack. And they lived in a shack with no plumbing, no electricity. An absolute horrible situation. So that's why I think he needed to find something. And I think that's what he found, religion and ministry, his goal, because he would obviously perverse it completely. And,
right.
and he would end up, the People's Temple ends up being a cult pretty much, because to join, you have to turn all your finances to, right? All your money goes to him. He'll take care of you. He'll find your housing. And he took advantage, and I hate to say it, took advantage of a lot of minorities and a lot of disadvantaged people, right? And the politicians, because he came up with integration, right? He was one of the first guys integrating the churches with blacks and whites and everything else. Was unpopular in Indiana, right? He ended up going to San Francisco. Well, of course, very liberal out there.
Right.
Became very popular. He would help get votes for the mayor. In 76, Walter Mondale and Jimmy Carter was there, and he helped California go blue, right? So he can beat Ford. So that's why they were embarrassed, humiliated, right? Angry. They didn't want a full investigation on Jonestown. But this guy, Ryan, he was a Democrat, but he knew there was something wrong. But this is where I criticize him in the book a little bit. When you know this guy is so unstable, right? They had already information, affidavits of defectors, that they were already doing mock drills like this, drinking the Kool-Aid. They already trained them that if this happens, this is what we're going to do. They have people what they call white knight drills, where they have gunfire over their heads. So they would just stay down and they would drink the Kool-Aid. He had all this cyanide prepared for this. So you don't think...
But that's how... Look, but I hear what you're saying, but if you were telling me that, I would be thinking...
Oh, that's crazy.
It's too crazy. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, that's never happened. Like I mean, in history, it's happened. But it's so unbelievable that an American citizen and that a group of American citizens would have done this, or that anybody would follow, or anybody would follow through. Like, okay, he's doing it. I get it. He's out there, but that's probably not. It's not going to happen. And who's going to kill a senator? That's not going to happen. Yeah. With a senator or congressman?
Congressman. Yeah, not just a congressman, but the entourage that's with him.
The staff. Yeah,
the staff. And there's one lady who was his staff member. She survived by playing dead for 24 hours on the strip there, and until the army came in to rescue her. She played dead. She had 5 bullet wounds inside her. She just wrote a book and a great interview. I haven't seen her talk about it. She gets very emotional. Now she took over his old position like 10 years ago. So now she's a congressperson from that district.
Okay.
Yeah. But,
wow.
Unbelievable story. But you know what? A lot of people didn't commit suicide. But what the investigation shows, they wanted to leave. They were the guards. His what he called the red. But he was a communist. And those who don't know, he's a hardcore, very much Marxist-Leninist communist. He hated this country because obviously the racial issues. He called it pretty much a racist, fascist nation, right? And he wanted to set up this Marxist utopia out there in Jonestown. He was big Fidel Castro. He was a big fan of the Soviet Union. He even had Soviet officials come in and say, this is the perfect Marxist utopia that I have set up here. And they congratulated him. They went out there and said, man, you've done here. But at the same time, these people were oppressed. He had him work 12-hour days. He fed him rice and beans while he ate like a king. And at the end, those who didn't want to commit suicide, the goon squad, what I call them, the Red Brigade, came out with injections and injected everybody in the shoulder with a cyanide. And you see that. And so a lot of people were murdered. And to me, when you're brainwashed like that, you're being murdered.
Because didn't some of the people even try and run off into the woods and stuff, and they were shooting at them? Or
no, they didn't. You can't. No escape. You have to die. When he said it's time to die, it is time to die. There was no like, hey, this was a man. No, these people were murdered. I mean, look, a lot of people say, especially children, and they have no say in it. They were forced to drink that. Small children, they were killed, and they were a lot. I think there were 200 something children that were murdered, and including his own children. And his own wife even protested and said, "This has to be a different way." And then it goes, mother, please. He goes like, he's already in that crazy psycho world. And he tells children, we have to hurry, children. We have to hurry. We have to send a message to the world, the suicidal revolution. I mean, he was just off his, who in the right mind will see, because he wanted to send a message. And then he didn't take the Kool-Aid himself, the cyanide. He shot himself in the head.
Did you, I forgot, I'm going to butcher this guy's name. The guy who wrote Fight Club, Chuck Paholnicek.
Yeah.
I know I butchered his name. Anyway, he wrote a book called Survivor, and it talks about a mass suicide, and he talks about several mass suicides in the book, but it's very much written in the same vein as Fight Club. He has that real choppy writing style, which is great because that book really moved along. He also talks about that's a great book about multiple different types of suicide. Talks about Heaven's Gate.
Yep.
Yeah, that mass suicide, but nothing like nothing compares to
There's nothing. We've never had it. It was the worst mass murder until 9/11, right? With Americans, right?
I see that.
So and with that, so going back to my point, I thought the congressman made a mistake. I know he had a history of being very proactive. He's a Democrat, and remember, this guy Jones helped the Democrats win the '76 election, the national election. He helped it win a lot because he was key getting the votes out with African Americans, because he had an integrated church. He was a socialist, remember, and there's a very socialist area. So the State Department did not give him a lot of information while I was reading, and according to the staff member who survived, what really was going on. Because remember, they had people already saying about all these defectors saying, hey, dude, they're doing mock exercises. They're torturing people in there. If you stand up anything, they'll put you in this hot box. They'll put you underground. They put you in a well. They really torture people. You better get on the program. There's no escaping. There's no leaving. This is what they're doing to you. So I think it was a big mistake. Him knowing what's going on there, knowing these guys are armed. He knew they were armed. I personally, just being common sense, is I need the Guyanan government to help me, give me security, protection. He went unarmed. He thinking that the media guys, oh, I have NBC with me, I have the Washington Post. He's not going to shoot us with the media here. Yeah, kill everybody.
This guy's not following the Geneva Convention. Like, I can't shoot reporters or medics.
Don't you know I'm a congressman?
Yeah.
I don't think he cares.
Yeah.
Sure, man. He care. So you can never underestimate your opponent. Never underestimate.
Yeah.
Be prepared. I think he would have, if he would have had the army, or at least some representatives, and they saw the evidence, I think they could have arrested him, taken him there, and he would have saved those lives. I think he was just approached the wrong way. And at the end, knowing that kind of person, how volatile he was, how could they not think that would not trigger that after he'd been practicing that, right? He pretty much said that's what he's going to do.
Arrogance.
So that's my criticism in the book. If you read it, I blame a lot of the Carter administration at the time for obviously he went out there as a congressman. He could do his own investigation, right? Different bodies of government. You have the executive and legislator, right. But they should have given him some support and protection because he was set up to fail. He was set up to fail, and they failed badly. And look what we have, the consequences. So something you got to really think about this guy. And he really, there's a reason why he created Jonestown, because he was this close, again, picked up in the U.S. for obviously tax evasion. He really didn't have a church. He had all this protection as a church, but it was a cult, and he was stealing, and he was abusing.
Right.
He would rape the members. He would even rape males. So he was involved in a lot of bad things. So he knew his time was coming. That's why he set up Guyana. I think originally he wanted to go in Brazil, but it was easier for him because Guyana was a British colony, former British colony, English speaking, and it just worked out easier for him to go to Guyana, which at the time had become a socialist nation also, very communist. So that's another issue they had to deal with. So interesting read. If you like what we talked about, I think you'll like the story of Jim Jones. If you don't know much about it, a lot of the younger generation, I've noticed, doesn't know anything what happened in Jonestown. So read about it. You'll be shocked. And his tape, the death tape, you got to listen to that. Of the brink of a madman with 1,000 people jumping off a cliff.
Well, shoot, I was going to say something too when you were talking. I was thinking, I know what it was. It was the, it kind of, one of the things you were talking about finances is it reminded me of David Koresh.
Oh, Waco. Yeah.
Yeah. He would have all the women and everybody go and get on food stamps and get on, like that. That's a big thing with the cults. One of the things they do is they immediately have everybody sign up for, they call it bleeding the beast. They call it like bleeding the beast, where you sign up for all the subsidies and all that, you get as much as you can. Of course, they all live there. And he, of course, he's got air conditioning. He's eating well. They're all
like a king. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's typical with this communist, socialist system. Look at Nicolas Maduro. You looked at Fidel Castro. You look at Xi Jinping in China. You looked at Kim Jong-un in North Korea. They abuse the people, the little people. They think this is better for them. No, this is the best system out here, folks. Don't get conned into that. This is the best system out there. Nothing is perfect, but it is the best system. At least, you can work your way up. You want to get your education. You want to do things. You can make something in your life here. And it happens. One thing you can never take away from you, I tell people this all the time, is your education. They can never, no matter what happens, they can never take your education from you. They can't take your drive from you. They can't take your determination from you. That's built within you, no matter what government happens in here. So educate and be free. And there's a lot of brainwashing. And be a person, ask questions, get different sources. Don't just accept one source. And unfortunately, these people did that, right? And you see the communists do that. And he was very good at propaganda and brainwashing, where you weren't allowed to get other information from other sources. It was his source of information, healthy diet every day. That way, that's what Castro did, the same thing. CCP does the same thing in China, and I've written about those books in China. They like their one-party system as our way or the highway. So end up one of three ways for you. Either death, imprisonment, or they're going to kick you out of the country. That's a reality. That's the reality we live in the 21st century.
All right. That's depressing. So, all right. So,
But true though, right?
you really brought the tenor of the show down.
No, but we're it though. We're the shining light here. So, hey, good thing is we're living the good country. Be happy you were born in communist China, or Venezuela, or North Korea. That is just. Have you ever seen the videos out there, man? That is depressing to see that. So those are the books. Also, all the kind of books I've written about. So I have such a huge just did 60th. Jim Jones is my 60th book. I just did my 60th book in a little over a year. So it's pretty cool. You can find it now. I'm doing the Audible book should be coming out. That should be coming out within a month on ATF Undercover, and then I'm doing more with Sean. We're just doing the one on mass shootings. We just started that one. So some of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history, and based on my background, solutions to that. I mean, that could be a show within itself. What's going on in our country with mass shootings? That's depressing for me, and how we can stop them, and how what we can do. I don't know if you've seen the video or not, and I talked to a lot of people about this. I've done shows about this. Uvalde, Texas. What happened at Robb Elementary?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, you have to look at the video. 77 minutes while the shooter's in the classroom, killing the students and teachers while the police is outside.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I've seen bits and pieces.
You got to see the whole thing. It is really, all of it's out there now. And what's really upsetting, and you got to watch this, and the audience should look at this. One of the officers, female officers, they forget they have the body cams on, right?
Right.
And another guy was recording her because everybody has it on. And I guess she had her off, but he had his on. And they're outside. They are already, finally, it was the feds. It was the Border Patrol. The TAC unit came in there, and it wasn't the locals. They were the ones who went in there, and I think they were like 15, 20 miles away, and they responded, and they're the ones that came in the classroom, and they're the ones that killed them, who killed the Ramos inside there. It wasn't the locals who stayed outside. He said, hey, wasn't your daughter in there? And one of the guys was saying, no, my daughter's a VPK, but if my daughter was in there, I would definitely have gone in.
Whoa.
Come on. My daughter was in there, but what the other people's daughters children weren't good enough to go in there? I mean, that's what you serve and protect. This is what the call is about. When you got that kind of situation and kids are dying, that one of the girls was calling 911, saw her teacher get her head blown off, right? And the other students are dying, bleeding in there. It says, please come and help, using the teacher's phone, right, to call 911. You stay outside the classroom because, he's got a rifle. We have handguns. Well, they have nothing, right? Go in there. Get a shotgun. You got shotguns. You got everything else. Those are the kind of things I talk about, where you need people who are teachers who are willing to protect. Teachers are willing to die for their students. Some of them were shielding their students at the end, taking the bullets for their kids. They want to fight. And those, just like after 9/11, when we had after the pilots, right, taking over the airplanes, they had the option to be armed, right? We're to the point where we would probably have to do the same thing with administrators, teachers, the same thing, because some police officers happened in Miami and Parkland, they stayed outside, right? And Nicholas Cruz ends up killing a lot of the students and teachers inside because he has a rifle, right? I understand it's not a fair fight. You have a handgun, he has better range, it's faster, and he's going through your body armor, but these kids have nothing, and the teachers have nothing. And staying outside, that's being a coward. After shooter training, so you got two people in, you do it and you address the guy, because that's what you're supposed to do. So I address a lot of that. Book's going to be coming on Audible soon. It's already on that. And I talk a lot of scenarios, what we've learned, what we haven't learned, and the problems we have. And we may have to become more like Israel to protect ourselves because the response time is too long. And if a lot of these places don't want you armed, well, then you have to do something about it, because this doesn't end. We just had another one in Michigan State, right? It just seems like every week there's a new active shooter. As we speak right now, Matt, there's someone else who got triggered. It's going to do the same thing, because we have a mental health crisis in this country that's unimaginable. And on top of that, easy access to weapons. That's the problem. That's a depressing thing about 21st century America right now. And I put that in my book here. It's no solution, because the only other solution is a good guy taking on bad guys with guns, right? Letting everybody be armed. And because in Indiana a few months ago, in a food court, in a mall, a guy had armed himself in the bathroom. He started shooting, but somebody was armed, concealed weapons permit, and addressed him and killed him.
Yeah. You never see that. You never see that video though.
Hopefully
That's not
we'll
the
see
video they push.
No. We got to push other stuff. So those are things I want your audience to think about. Good conversations, serious topics we've taken on, but that's what I write about. Things are happening and solutions. My back, especially with ATF, my background with guns and stuff like this, it's really things that shouldn't be politicized by the right or the left. This is about us, right? Our family, because nobody wants their kids killed. Everybody wants to have their peace of mind. I have 2 daughters, safe at school. That's the worst case scenario. You get that call, school got shut down, a madman's, it's in the loose there, and they do nothing. Pulse nightclub. I mean, it's just case after case. The police don't go in sometimes. Pulse nightclub, they spend like 12 hours. Well, he's there, remember, in the gay nightclub, the guy is shooting everybody in the gay nightclub. I mean, they wait for the SWAT team while the people are in the bathroom and he's lining up in the stalls and shooting everybody. Why aren't they going in? So it is just one after another, and I pick apart each one. So it's an interesting read, what we have to learn and what we have to do, and it's about people being armed. These gun-free zones, Matt. The bad guys are going to victimize you because they're going to.
That doesn't change a fucking thing.
No, they're going to be armed. They know that's easy pickings, because I've done a lot of shows with guys, and just my own history, who have a history, and that's what they look for. They look for the bank doesn't have the armed security guy, right? They look for the place in the mall which is nobody armed, no policing, or the theater. These are things we have to be prepared for.
If you outlaw guns, outlaws, look, let's face it, criminals are not going to abide by that.
No.
They're not going to abide by that rule. Oh, we're not allowed to have the gun. Oh, well, then I won't. What are you talking about? But if you're willing to commit a mass shooting, you're willing to break the law, the gun laws, and there's just too many guns. You'll never get rid of all the guns.
No, we can't get rid of guns. I mean, the United States is the biggest manufacturer of weapons in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, the Europeans have come here. I mean, you have Glock, used to be made in Austria. It's made in Georgia. Sig Sauer, which is made in Germany, it's made in the Northeast. H&K, also in Germany, they've come here because we're buying it all. America. I mean, I have my collection too, but you have to protect your family, because if you expect call 911 and the police will come save you from a home invader in your house, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, no.
You better get your concealed weapons permit. You better practice. And if you haven't shot your gun, and that's the first time you're going to shoot it, that's not the time to learn. You better be competent with it, because you're going to be pumped. You're going to be adrenaline. You got something crazy coming at you. You better be ready how to use it and defend yourself. Because the worst thing is you see somebody do something bad to your family, and you wish you could have stopped it. Those are just lessons. Just lessons for a guy who retired in law enforcement, what I've seen, and hopefully people can learn and just passing some wisdom on what we can do.
All right.
It's awesome, man.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm good.
We good?
Yeah. I just you mean do a little promo on some?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I usually say that, obviously I'm gonna put Colby, which is, everybody who watches this knows who Colby is. Colby will put the book links. Like if you send me the book links, he'll put your book links in the description.
Oh, great.
Of the video, so people can just go to the description box. They just hit the button and boom, it'll have a whole list where they can just click on it and bring you straight to your Amazon account or your your Amazon book. And
I just have an Amazon author page with all my books. I'll just send you the Amazon author page that I have. It's a great one. So I'll let the audience know also. I do also have a Amazon author page too. You can Google it or go obviously go on Amazon, which is my name. I think it's there, Ignacio Esteban. And you can see all my books, 60 books, from fiction to nonfiction. I also do fiction books also, which is fun reads. I also do pictorial books. And I think you'll really if you like organized crime, I have a lot to do. This is a true crime channel. I have a lot in organized crime. My personal experiences dealing with biker group, we haven't even talked about that yet. So that could be another show down the road if you want, doing the one percenters, doing the outlaws, the Hells Angels, the Mongols. I've done books on Yakuza. I've done books on LA gangs. I was in LA for 8 months between the Bloods, the Crips, the Mexican Mafia. I've done books on MS-13, Mana Salvatrucha. So there's a lot of stuff here. If you like this stuff, obviously I've done books on the Mafia, Castro, the Mafia, and the history of the Mafia in Havana. The rise and fall of the Mafia in Havana led to the rise in Las Vegas. And I talked all the political side because of my family. They were there. They experienced it. And you see it firsthand what's going on there. So a lot of cool things. Please look it up, and have the audio stuff coming out on Audible, ATF Undercover, and hopefully to get the other books out there through Sean.
It's on Amazon, right? Everything's on Amazon.
All my books are exclusively on Amazon. I'm at now 72 books. I've got super long ones, medium ones, and short ones. And now I'm getting into the audibles.
Right. And I was going to say, Sean, you're working with Sean to do the
Sean Milo. Excellent.
Great. Yeah, he's great.
You used them. Others have. He's been doing it for years. Nice voice, easy, soothing, nice to listen to. Can't complain about that. Enjoy that. And if you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, all my books are free. So if you're a KU subscriber, enjoy that. You got to read all this stuff too with me. So I'm getting a lot of stuff out there. That was just finished. I'm now working one on the mafia in Miami, the history of the mafia in South Florida. Fascinating stuff I didn't realize. And I'm working on that book now. So that should be a fun one.
Hey, I appreciate you guys watching the video. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos like this, and share the video and leave me a comment. We're going to put the Amazon link in the description. And all right, I appreciate you guys. See you.